Metal Slime Dungeon. CH 188-213 Unrealistic Picture. Chapter 188, Blazing Tyrant. The rooftop of the Midtown Tower in Minato Ward. Stationed on there was the Seeker from Farmall. Ooh. Here they are. It really is a dragon. Tenuji Akito was looking at the horizon while making a visor with his own hand. Man, just imagining myself fighting is enough to send a chill running down my spine, said Akito happily while tapping the Thunder Spear Geibog in his left hand on his shoulder. Oi Tenuji. This isn't the time to joke around. If the sky here is annihilated, there's nothing that can stop those monsters anymore. This is the last line of defense for this country. After being reprimanded by Farmall's leader, Osaka, Akito just waved his hands. I know that. I'm also fighting with you. Despite his light tone, Akito was truly aware of the gravity of the situation. They had to kill as many ancient dragons as possible and hit the Red King. That's why he was prepared to bet his life. The problem is whether my Geibog can reach it or not. The flock of dragons had almost arrived. They could already see a few fire pillar-like things. Maybe the dragon was breathing flame, doing whatever they like, eh? Akito gritted his teeth in anger upon seeing that spectacle. At that moment, a flash ran through the sky. Akito had no idea what happened for a moment, but the place where that flash fell was shining brightly, which was then followed by a terrifying explosion a few seconds later. What the heck? The shock that reached all the way to the rooftop blew away the Seekers standing over there. Akito couldn't hide his shock. That flash of light was the attack of the Red King. The red flame exploded on the ground, creating a giant mushroom cloud that reached the sky. Damn it. Over there is Hoshioji, right? Osaka frowned as he looked in the direction of the explosion. You must be kidding me. The shockwave from that place has reached this far. Right after Akito said so, two other flashes were fired upward. One of them was fired toward the peak of Mount Fuji, the other was toward Kanagawa. Both attacks created giant explosions, raising giant mushroom clouds high in the sky. Has another city just been erased from the map? The sound of an explosion could be heard sometime later. The evacuation shouldn't have finished yet. And Mount Fuji is an active volcano, right? Maybe it's going to erupt if it gets hit with a few more attacks. Osaka shouted with a loud voice that didn't drown in the explosion. Mount Fuji was raising smoke. Its peak was gouged due to the previous attack. Surely, if it received a few more attacks like that. Akito frowned, then looked at the King of Dragons. After it reached the center of the city, it finally landed on the ground. The impact of its landing raised a cloud of dust and broke the windows of the surrounding building. Akito's lips twitched upon seeing that. You must be kidding me. My skin feels burned even though we're 2 kilometers away from it. It wasn't just Akito, the other Seekers of Farmall were also enduring the heat, looking at the King of Dragon with a despaired look on their faces. How in the hell are we supposed to beat that thing? The Crisis Management Center is located in the basement of the Prime Minister's official residence. The images that were taken from several cameras installed around the cities were sent to this place via fiber optic. The huge monitor in the conference room was divided into smaller squares, each of which displayed the image of the Red King. Screams resounded inside the room every time an explosion was captured by the camera. That is the Red King, I muttered to Takakura as he looked at the monitor. Its body was covered in shiny red scales, unfolding its giant pair of wings. Though it bears a resemblance to the ancient dragon, it looks more ominous. A few horns growing from its head, and huge and sharp-looking fangs peeking out from its maw. It was looking around as if evaluating something before opening its maw and spewing a blazing flame from its mouth. The flame drew a straight line on the ground, burning everything in its wake. The unlucky Seekers who happened to stand by on the rooftop of the building in its wake were evaporated along with the building. Countless ancient dragons in the air were also spitting flame one after another. They turned the streets of Tokyo into seas of flame in no time. It was as if Tokyo had been turned into hell itself. The Seekers who unleashed their magic from on top of the building also died a dog death when the flame of an ancient dragon hit them. The dragons were swimming freely in the air as if to show the humans that they could slaughter them anytime they wanted. The Red King fired another fireball into the sky. The sky exploded with a deafening sound. The blast of the explosion destroyed the nearby buildings, turning them into piles of rubble. JSDF fired missiles and shells from afar. Alas, those missiles and shells exploded before reaching the Red King. In short, it was far from enough to break the flame barrier emitted by the dragon. Seeing that, Dakagura dazed for a moment and flinched back. There was no way a human could beat something like that. This creature was clearly born to rule the earth. The apex predator. Humans were nothing more than prey for them. The Red King fired one blazing fireball after another. With each unleashed fireball, cities such as Kanagawa, Chiba, Saitama, Yamanashi, and Shizuoka were erased from the map. Those are the places where the citizens haven't finished their evacuation yet. Smoke and fumes rose high in the sky, and though it was still far away, their footstep could be felt from miles away. When Dakagura turned around, he saw the figure of Iwahara sitting at the meeting table. He grabbed his head without being able to see the monitor. His face was painted with despair. Obviously, he was not in the right mind to give a command. Dakagura shook his head before looking back at the monitor. Are we really? Can I do anything? The transport vehicle, CH-47 Chinook, finally entered the airspace of Tokyo. The SDFs and Yuma, who looked at the situation outside from the window in the cockpit, were left agape. The center of the city was filled with clouds and smoke. Flames were burning everywhere. The building was destroyed, the house turned into rubble. A few hundred of dragons flying in the air flutter as if they were playing in their own playground. Already this much damage. Yuma nodded upon hearing Kawara's groan. This dragon was far more brutal and dangerous than any monster he had ever fought so far. Moreover, they could see the figure of a giant dragon when they looked at the center of the destruction. That is, the Red King. When Yuma frowned upon seeing his target, the helicopter had finally entered the area for a safe landing and was circling around it. Please wait for a while. I'll find a safe place to land. Yuma shook his head when the pilot of the helicopter told him so. No, drop me right above those dragons. I'll jump down from there. Starting with Kawara, everyone from the SDF couldn't hide their shock upon hearing Yuma's declaration. Jumping down? That's too dangerous, Mitaka-san. We do have parachutes, but that isn't something that an amateur could use that easily. Yuma was smiling wryly while looking at Kawara, who said those words. I don't need a parachute. I'll jump down as it is. No way. Everyone should have known that my body is a little different. I won't die even if I fall from a high altitude. But trust me, Kawara-san, I know what I'm doing. Hearing those words, Kawara could only shut his mouth as he looked at Yuma with a serious face. After pondering for a while, he stood up and talked to the pilot in the cockpit as if he had made up his mind. The pilot nodded and pulled back the control lever. At that moment, the transport vehicle flew to an even higher altitude than the dragon. We will fly to an altitude where we won't be attacked by the dragon. It'll be quite high, are you sure about it? No problem, said Yuma to answer Kawara's question. How's your physical condition? The poison did wreck your body. Better than before. I think I can fight better than before. I see. I understand. The heli rose to an even higher altitude right above the Red King. Once it reached a safe distance, the heli maintained that altitude while opening its hatch. The air escaped from the cabin and the wind that was rolling in flapped his clothes. Yuma took off his jacket and helmet. Please take refuge in a safe place once I jump down. Yuma shouted to Kawara and company since his voice might be swallowed by the wind noise if he spoke too softly. Understood, Kawara replied with an equally loud voice. Yuma grabbed the pole at the side of the hatch and looked at Kawara's face. The latter is still looking worriedly at him. Don't worry, everything will be okay. Godspeed. That was the only word Kawara could say to Yuma, who was about to face a tough battle. Thanks. Yuma turned around as he replied to Kawara and then jumped down from the helicopter. Chapter 189, Descend of Giant God. The Nihonbashi Mitsui Tower building in the center of the city was on fire. The figure of two men stood on the rooftop of that building. Move it. We won't be able to get a good video otherwise. Spare me from dying in such a place, Tanura-san. Don't worry, we're far away from those monsters. And we will die when the time for us to die has come. Mutilda, this is beyond reckless. The reporter of Sun Press, Tanura, clicked his tongue hearing his plump junior, Tada. They could see the scenery of a far place from on top of a tall building. The dragon that was dancing in the sky destroyed numerous buildings and their flame burned the vicinity. It was a truly unrealistic event. Save your breath for later. We can get the best scoop from this place. The Sun Press that employs Tanura not only uploads their article on their website, but they can also upload live videos too. As a result of fanning their loyal reader on their website about today's live broadcast, there had been a record-breaking number of people who had been waiting for their live footage. The reason for that was probably because all TV channels suspended their broadcast. Tanura had Dada, his subordinate, hold the small IP camera as he tried to connect the broadcast with a communication cable. But Senior, the range of our broadcast is pretty limited since the dragon destroyed the telephone line. That's enough. The number of people watching our live broadcast is plenty. This is the highest number of viewers since the founding of Sun Press. Ain't that good enough? Tada heaved a weary sigh as he stood beside Tanura, who was in high spirits. The time was 2:18 p.m. They did live broadcasts from dangerous places. They did such live broadcasts in limited environments, such as having their PC screen connected to telephone lines or only being able to use the internet television available in the shelter. The viewer gasped upon seeing that the city was engulfed in a great fire. And then, oi, wait. Kanzaki and Aisha were running along the shopping district toward the nearby shelter. Aisha suddenly stopped before the store, looking at the TV screen that switched on from outside of the window of the small electric store. What's that? Relay broadcast. No. Electromagnetic wave in the air is disturbed due to the influence of mana. This is a telephone line network. It seems this small electric store was privately owned. When Aisha peeped inside from the open door, she saw an elderly couple packing their luggage as they came out from the store. Excuse me, is this a live broadcast? Aisha turned around and asked her husband. Yeah. This TV is connected to the internet. Rather than worrying about this, both of you should evacuate too. The couple left their store right after that. They keep their TV on without switching off the electricity or locking the door. Ain't they a bit too careless? Aisha shook her head upon hearing Kanzaki's remark. Only idiots go to loot a store when it looks like the doomsday is coming, said Aisha as she entered the store and watched the broadcast. It seems to be taken from far away, but she guessed that the giant dragon was the so-called Red King. When the Dragon King swung its tail, all building in its wake was destroyed. Its flame breath melted all buildings in its path. The cityscape of Tokyo had been destroyed beyond recognition. The dragons were akin to apostles of destruction. I don't think the shelter is truly safe. A lot of people might die. Kanzaki frowned, hearing Aisha's muttering. Most likely. But why are they staying in the center of Tokyo? They should be able to fly to the next destination. Maybe because of the number of the population in Tokyo. They raided the entire Kanto starting from its center to kill humans more efficiently. Aisha calmly analyzes the situation. She concluded that the Red King was actually an intelligent monster. If they intend to clean up the human in this place to make their own living space, then we really going to lose our living space. Seeing Aisha lost in her own world, Kanzaki called out to her. Oi, let's get going. The fire is about to reach this place too. Yeah. You're right. Just when they were about to leave the store, a certain part of the video caught Aisha's attention. Wait a second. What now? Said Kanzaki, stopping as Aisha called out to him. What's the matter? Something just fell. Fell? Kanzaki looked back at the TV again but couldn't find anything since the place of the live broadcast was too far away. But, Aisha looked at the TV screen really seriously. It looks like the silhouette of a human. Yuma couldn't open his eyelids due to air pressure since he dived headfirst. The cold air sapped his body temperature immediately. Yuma felt indescribable pain even as he clenched his fists. Though he told Kawara that his body was fine, it was in fact a lie. His body was still in so much pain that he couldn't even clench his fists properly. He felt as if he would pass out just by losing his focus for a moment. And yet, he had no choice but to fight even if he had to do so in a worse physical condition. Then, the color of his skin gradually turned black as his body transformed into metal. His clothes were submerged in liquid metal. His body became twice as big as he transformed into black armor. A long horn grew from his helmet, along with sharp fangs. Once he opened his eyes, his body was already clad in metallic armor, and he could see the situation on the ground. A dragon was floating right below his drop route. Yuma unleashed the gauntlet sword in his right hand as magical power of water coursing through his body. A terrifying impact attacked Yuma when he got close to the ancient dragon. He crashed against the dragon's magic barrier. But Yuma pierced that barrier as if it was a piece of paper thanks to his magical power of water and without losing his full momentum. He swung his sword the moment he passed the dragon, and bisected its neck like cutting butter with a heated knife. The bisected head spun in the air for a moment before it fell along with its body. The same goes for Yuma, who couldn't escape from the gravity pull. He had also fallen straight to the ground. He raised a thick cloud of dust along with his crash landing. The Red King, who was over 100 meters apart from that place, suddenly stopped unleashing their flame and looked at Yuma's falling sight. Standing right beside the corpse of an ancient dragon was a humanoid figure. The Red King looks at the silhouette of a humanoid figure with an interested look on their face. Their instinct as a dragon warned them that the opponent who appeared before them was an existence that they couldn't overlook. Yuma shook his head and barely managed to stand on his feet. When he looked around, he found the corpse of a headless dragon. It was the dragon that he defeated in midair. When he looked to the front, a giant dragon with bizarre magical power was glaring at him. Yuma was laughing at the dragon who was looking down at him. So a fellow with such a powerful and intimidating presence does exist. Even Yuma, who couldn't sense mana, noticed the giant dragon's bizarre magical power. He could even feel the heat that he shouldn't have felt due to his heat resistance. The other party wasn't the kind of opponent that he could defeat with a half-assed resolution. Yuma stepped back while touching his chest. His metallization didn't take away the pain caused by poison. He could barely stand on his feet. And that act alone already sapped his stamina. The Red Dragon King opened its jaw, gathering flame in their mouth. They went all out from the get-go. Yuma braced his leg and glared at the Red King. Everyone in this country will die unless he defeat the giant monster before him. The face of his family, Mamizo, and school friends, Rui, and appear in his mind. This was an unavoidable battle. He had to defeat the opponent before him, no matter what. Yuma pressed even more strongly on his chest. Can you hear me, giant slime? My power alone is far from enough to defeat that guy. I need your power. There was no change in his body. But, Yuma knows that he needs the power of the giant slime that defeated the Chimera in the Black Dungeon to triumph against the enemy before him. You're watching from inside of me, right? I know that you have been living in me all along. At this rate, both of us going to die. Are you sure that you want to die just like this? The Red King's jaw had already been locked on Yuma's position. There was no way he would be unscathed if he took that flame breath head-on. And yet, Yuma didn't get flustered at all. I'm not gonna let you to take over my body this time. I'll be in control of my body till the end and become your master. The Dragon King's jaw opened to its limit and released gigantic magical power. Lend me your power. The breath swallowed Yuma's body. The flame turned into an unstoppable tsunami that burned everything in its wake. The building, the road, and everything in its wake had literally evaporated. The next moment, a cloud of dust was rising in the air. That spectacle caught the attention of the seekers in the vicinity. When the dust that rose to the sky settled down, a giant humanoid figure appeared from within, its size rivaling that of the Red King. A sharp horn grew from the giant's head and its entire body was covered in spiky armor. A pair of shields almost as tall as its body was strapped on its shoulders, countless glowing blue lines running on its body. The giant protected itself from the dragon's breath with its shield. Yuma, who transformed into a giant, wished to minimize the damage on his body. He pushed the shield toward the Red King. The Black Giant and the Red King were seizing at each other. Yuma grits his teeth to stay awake, adjusting his breath while glaring at the enemy before him. Well then. Let's begin. Support me with Ko-fi. Chapter 190. Moment of clash. The video recording of the giant who appeared out of nowhere was sent to the Crisis Management Center in the Prime Minister's official residence. It had caused a commotion in the conference room. Takakura stood up from his chair, looking at the monitor with the face. The black armor? Hearing those words, Prime Minister Iwaki, who hung his head down, raised his face immediately. What? He stood up from his chair and walked with unsteady steps to the monitor. Alive? Is he alive? Upon arriving by Takakura's side, he looked at the monitor with a dumbfounded face. Akira also looked back at the monitor again. The black armor. Mitaka Yuma is alive. Does that mean Mikoshiba saved him? It was a piece of good news for them if he was alive and come to defeat the Red King, but how did he get that big? Tizin fired his railgun toward the ancient dragon flying in the sky. The dragon barely dodged the bullet and glided toward them, seemingly enraged. The Seekers stationed on the rooftop of the building couldn't dodge. The moment the dragon opened its jaw to unleash its fire breath, Tenuji leapt in the air. His gauntlet, clad in lightning sparks, raised overhead and nailed right onto the dragon's head. The dragon raised a low painful cry as it crashed down. Rua had already been waiting below with his blazing katana. The sword's blade, which was clad in flame, drew an arc and decapitated the dragon's head. The cross-section exploded, blowing off the ancient dragon's head. Rua sent a sidelong glance at the dragon head rolling on the ground before returning his katana back into its sheath. Good job, Rua. Rua shook his face with a forlorn look on his face despite receiving such praise from Tenuji. Beating the dragon is harder than we expected. At this rate, surely, we only managed to take down 2 of them with this one. They managed to lure a few dragons to come by using Tizin's railgun. But since the dragon escaped immediately once it got beaten down, they only managed to beat 2 so far. Rua was looking up to the sky with a hint of embarrassment on his face. There were a lot of dragons flying in the sky as if it were their own territory. Damn it. When Rua was cursing angrily, he heard a thunderous noise coming from behind. Upon turning around, everyone saw a cloud of dust rising high to the sky. What the hell is happening now? Tizin frowned. Even Tenuji looked surprised. They almost mistook it as another attack from the Red King, but it seems they were wrong. The stone and soil that rose high in the air then settled down beneath Ruya and Ko's feet. Once the dust settled down, they saw a giant appear from within. Rua squinting his eyes. The thick black arms, muscular back, and the long horn growing from the giant's head. That was undoubtedly the figure of a giant. What the heck is that? Tizin was completely at a loss for words, to the point that he dropped the railgun gauntlet in his right hand upon seeing that spectacle. Rua was just as surprised. His eyes were glued to that black giant. Because the giant's figure looks familiar to him. That giant. Could it be? What the heck with that explosion just now? Akito, who fought a dragon on the rooftop of a midtown tower, stopped for a moment and turned toward the direction of the explosion. Something is exploding in the vicinity of the Red King. 2 fire dragons used the chance to glide closer to the distracted Akito. They unleashed fire breath toward the Seeker of Farmal. Read the air, damn it! Akito snapped out immediately. He readied his Gaebog and leapt in the air. The black lightning unleashed from his spear split the sky and pierced the dragon's wings. Having lost their balance, the dragon crashed down to the ground. Akito gathered magical power into his spear tip and thrust with all his. The black lightning hit the dragon's head and blew it to pieces. Akito landed on the ground and raised his spear as he vigilantly looked up again. The other dragon was already heading down toward his direction. The other Seekers couldn't do anything about the flame breath that came from above. Akito clicked his tongue and prepared to throw his spear. Take this. The spear that was clad in black lightning traveled at high speed when it was thrown. By then, the dragon couldn't dodge the spear anymore, and then startled as if it had been zapped by a thunderbolt. The zapped dragon then crashed down along with the dragon, while raising black smoke from its zapped body. The monster turned into sand as soon as it crashed down to the ground. Akito stretched his hand and took back the Gaebog that fell beside the dragon. Man, thank goodness it falls nearby. I've no choice but to give up if it falls on top of the building. Akito tapped the shaft of the spear on his shoulder and ran back to Asaka and company. Good job, Tenuji. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine, but what about you guys? They are clad in flame, right? Akito shifted his gaze, looking at a few Seekers who fell on the wash basin. Well, they're suffering from some burnt wound, but it wasn't life-threatening wound. That matter aside. Yeah. The real problem is that both of them were looking in the same direction. At the end of their line of sight was a 20-meter-tall black giant, standing as if facing the Red King. The heck, a new monster? No one knows where that giant appeared, but one thing was clear for everyone: both the giant and the Red King had a tremendous amount of magical power. Both sides were glaring at each other as if seizing the other party. Yuma's shoulders heaved up and down. The Red King, who had to look up to him, didn't seem to be that big now. He had to fight. But Unbearable pain assailed his chest. Even if he managed to borrow the power of the giant slime, the poison still affected him. If he passed out here, the giant slime might run amok and destroy the city. That was the last thing he wanted. Yuma glared at the enemy before him. He clenched his fists. Thus, the glowing red lines of the bloody ore appeared on his body, while the lines that appeared on his arms were glowing in blue light, a sign that it was infused with the magical power of water. Looking from afar, it looks like a purple glow. The dragon gathered magical power in their mouth. Yuma took a stance and dashed forward. He made a shoulder armor on his left shoulder as he charged forward. There was a powerful shockwave when the shoulder armor was about to clash with the dragon. He crashed against the magic barrier deployed by the Red King. Though the shockwave was so powerful to the point that it shook the ground, Yuma kept charging ahead. The fire barrier got blown off, along with a loud sound. Yuma clenched his right fist to punch with his everything. It was an all-out straight right. The dragon opened their mouth, preparing to unleash a nuclear-level fireball. Fireball versus punch. A loud explosion happened when the attack of the two kings clashed. A tremor ran on the ground along with a pillar of light that rose to the sky. Both the seeker in the vicinity and the people who saw the battle on television couldn't open their eyes since it was too bright. Finally, the dazzling light settled down, and everyone could see what had just happened. The towering black giant stood still with his fist pushed forward. On the other hand, smoke was rising from the Red King. The white smoke cleared off, and Rui, who saw the spectacle from above the building, was at a loss for words. That's Akoto, who saw the fight from another building, was also at a loss for words. The seekers from Farmel were equally dumbfounded. The reason was that the head of the Red King had already gone. There was only smoke rising from the blown-off neck. The body that lost its head shook, then fell behind. The headless body of the Red Dragon crashed against the building, raising a cloud of dust. The specialist and the government official who saw the event from the Crisis Management Center were also at a loss for words. Iwaki was standing still, looking at the monitor with a gapped face. 1. Strike. Chapter 191, Supreme Ruler vs. Supreme Ruler. Clash of Titans. You must be kidding me, right? The Red King got done in one hit. Akoto, who saw the spectacle from the roof of the building, was left speechless. Because the giant who appeared out of nowhere defeated the Red King in one strike. He had no idea what had just happened. Even the ancient dragon flying in the sky looks equally surprised by the situation. Osaka and the other seekers who saw that spectacle were also flabbergasted. Ain't the giant kinda look like the black armor, eh? Akoto then looked at the giant again. The giant was covered in metal armor, and a horn grew from his head, which resembled the features of the black armor. But the gigantic appearance made the giant look even more terrifying. And the level of power he displayed here was completely different compared to before. Are you telling me that this is the black armor's true power? Aisha, look. That's Yuma, right? Kenzaki shouted as he brought his face closer to the TV screen in the electronics store. Yeah, that's the figure of Yuma-kun when he defeated the Chimera. Does that mean the government sent him to defeat the Red King? Anyhow, he defeated that super strong-looking dragon in one punch. That's cool. Surely, his strength was terrifying. Especially the purple glowing lines on his body. It was as if there was glowing blue muscle bulging on his skin. Does Yuma-kun use water magic? He did eat a few blue magic gems before. Maybe he used it now. Aisha covered her lips with her hand. Yuma could unleash such a powerful attack just from a punch enhanced with water magic. But his magical power of water wasn't that much. Is he by chance got a magic gem from the government? He isn't rampaging despite using such powerful magical power. Seriously? Then he won't run amok. Aisha heaved a sigh, hearing Kenzaki speak delightfully. Good grief, you're such an optimistic fool. I'm more worried about him running out of magical power of water first. His magical power of water will be depleted with such a consumption rate. But he already defeated the enemy. You fool. A frown appeared on Aisha's face as she looked at the TV screen. The Red King won't be defeated that easily. That fella is the unique monster who stood at the summit of the unique monster. It's only natural for them to have the peculiar regenerative power of the red monster. Yuma was breathing erratically as he looked at the foe who was down to the ground. Did I defeat it? He nailed a counter the moment his opponent was about to unleash their attack. Since it nailed perfectly, he managed to blow the other party's head. But the temperature of the air changed with a breeze. Flame spurting from the body of the Red King. A lump of meat started growing from the cross-section of their neck and turned into head at blinding speed. As expected, the same as the Red Ogre. Yuma stepped back, raising his fists again. The Red King, whose head recovered, looked at the giant. A lump of flame formed in their mouth. The flame then solidified and turned into a sphere. The Red King's strongest attack, the blazing fireball, was fired at once. The pressure was so strong as if it was pressing his back. But Yuma didn't falter and gathered the magical power of water into his fist. He waited until the blazing fireball arrived right before him, and swatted it away with his left backhand. The sphere got flicked off along with a thunderous sound that tore the atmosphere. The fireball ascended far high to the sky and flickered. A bright flash covered the sky, then coloring it with a crimson-red color in the next moment. Yuma clenched his fist and rushed ahead without hesitation. The Red King had also gathered the magical power of fire in its mouth to intercept Yuma. Too slow, but a right punch was nailed into the dragon's face first. The dragon's head sprang back due to the force behind Yuma's punch. Yuma stepped further into the dragon's range and nailed a left hook into the dragon's flank. A liver blow. The fist with a spike pierced the dragon's stomach, not to mention that Yuma twisted his arm, enhancing its destructive power. The dragon's cries resounded. The Red King cried in agony. After receiving an attack containing the magical power of water, the dragon glared angrily at the giant. When it tried to gather another blazing fireball in their mouth again, an uppercut nailed right into their lower jaw. The uppercut crushed the dragon's skull along with their brain. It was Yuma's special combo. The dragon stumbled backwards. The black giant raised his right hand and unleashed his gauntlet sword. The gauntlet sword was clad in the magical power of armament. He swung his sword down, cutting the dragon's right wing. The Red King screamed in pain as blood spurted from the cross-section on the base of their right wing. The dragon spun in the air, brandishing their tail toward the giant. The giant received the attack with his left shoulder shield. An explosion occurred the moment the tail came into contact with the shield, raising a thick cloud of dust in the air. But the shield of the giant that was enchanted with magical power was safe and sound. He blocked the attack and grabbed the tail of the dragon. Then pulling the dragon in the air with all of his might, he spun in his place while swinging the dragon round and round before releasing them, throwing them more than 180 meters away. The dragon crashed into the rubble of a building with a loud explosive sound. The dragon cried in agony as it fell. The giant approached with heavy yet steady steps. The ground shook every time he took a step. The air was tense. The ancient dragon that was flying high in the air roared at once. Two of them then glided toward the giant. They opened their mouth to release fire breath toward the black giant. The giant didn't get bothered by that. He simply swung his right hand to the side, bisected both dragons in half. Since that slash was enchanted with the magical power of water, the dragon's body turned into sand immediately. Amidst the cloud of dust, the black giant glared at the Red King. The Dragon King was covered in flame as it regenerated their right wing. It then stood up slowly, roared toward the giant. The temperature around them was rising slowly. The ground was being simmered in that heat. The wrath and the killing intent of the dragon were transmitted to the environment. Yet, he felt nothing about it. Yuma charged ahead, grabbing the head of the dragon with both hands. He jumped and nailed a knee strike on the dragon's head. The crushed head of the Dragon King snapped back slowly. The giant landed on the ground, unleashed his right gauntlet sword, and brandished it to the side. The sword easily decapitates the dragon's head. The decapitated head flew in the air, bouncing on the ground thrice before stopping moving. Yuma kicked the body of the dragon with a left roundhouse kick before trampling on the dragon's head and falling to the ground. The head instantly turned into sand. But that was far from enough to kill the Red King. The dragon's head grew again from the decapitated neck and roared again. They weren't defeated even when the giant killed them with the attack that enchanted them with the magical power of water. Meaning that the water magic used by Yuma wasn't strong enough. But that didn't make the Dragon King stronger either. He was confident that he was strong enough to defeat the dragon. Yuma pulled back his fist and charged toward the Red King, who was about to spit flame from their mouth. The Crisis Management Center is located in the basement of the Prime Minister's official residence. The bureaucrat, specialist, and government official who saw the fight couldn't believe the spectacle displayed on the monitor. No matter how injured the Red King, its body would be engulfed in flame and recover like before. As if that wasn't surprising enough, the giant who fought the Red King caused even more astonishment. Too strong. Takakura raised a voice of admiration. Though the Red King had power beyond human comprehension, they were beaten one-sidedly by the giant. They were literally at the mercy of the giant's onslaught. Takakura could only gasp in seeing that spectacle. As IDR's Ethan Noble had said, the Black Armor. Rather, Mitaka Yuma had the power rivaling the Red King. But there was a little error in that evaluation. How could such an overwhelming power difference exist between King? So many things needed an explanation, but he could say one thing for sure. IDR was right, Mitaka Yuma is the only one who can defeat the king. Chapter 192. A hypothesis. The resident of Tokyo was evacuated into the shelter provided by the government under the underground railway. People were sitting next to each other on the ground. Everyone was despairing and anxious, not knowing what gonna happen after this. Since they cannot see the latest news with their smartphone, a big screen connected to the internet was prepared for them. They were currently watching the live news from the website of Sun Press. It only showed the movement of the dragon. At first, it only shows how the dragon burned everything in their wake, but then, the situation suddenly changed out of nowhere. A giant appeared out of nowhere and fought the giant dragon. The refugees were completely captivated by the fight that reminded them of the Tokusatsu show. But, amidst those confusion, look Mama. It's the Black Monster-san who saved me. Eh? The girl's mother looks troubled upon hearing her daughter's remark. When she looked at the monitor, surely the giant bore a resemblance with the monster who almost assaulted her daughter. It was a truly chaotic situation since her daughter had always said that person isn't a bad monster. Turned out, the giant was truly. The people around her had also begun to notice the strange thing about the giant. That giant kinda looks like the Black Armor, right? Eh? Come to think of it, they do resemble each other. WHO cares about that. All is well as long as that giant defeated the dragon. WHO destroyed the city. Yes. Please defeat the dragon. The depressed people stood up one by one, starting to cheer for the giant. Their feverish cheers resounded in the underground. The mother of the girl had no idea what to do, but her daughter was smiling joyfully as she pointed to the figure of the giant on the screen. Yuma's fierce attack continues on. The giant's fist and sword tore the Red King's body to pieces. The dragon was forced to defend one-sidedly. Their wings were torn off, their tail got smashed, and half of their face had already gone. Yuma attacked relentlessly since he knew that the dragon would eventually lose its recovery ability as long as he kept attacking, just like the case with Red Ogre. Thus Yuma didn't loosen the pace of his attack, but, the glowing blue line suddenly vanished. He finally ran out of magical power of water. Yuma stumbled back one step, and another step. The dragon's tattered body suddenly glowed in red light as if turning into magma. Its wings were growing back, and the wound on its body recovered rapidly. The Red King stood up slowly, glaring at the giant, then raised a thunderous roar. They unleashed storm-like flame. Yuma desperately used his shoulder shield to defend, but since he ran out of the magical power of water, he couldn't fully endure heat. Yuma grit his teeth. At this rate, I'm going to be burned alive. Kanzaki and Aisha, who saw that spectacle from the TV screen of the electronics store, knew immediately that the situation had turned for the worst. He finally ran out of the magical power of water. What shall we do? Can he win against the dragon without magic? Aisha glared at the TV screen with a frown on her face. She couldn't see the possibility of Yuma winning against the Red King without water magic. No, wait a second. Why does the Red King, who keeps firing such powerful flame magic like there's no tomorrow, run out of magical power? Aisha frowned. This is just a hypothesis, but maybe the Red King has the same ability as Yuma, the ability to convert the mana in the air into magical power. What? The Black King can convert mana into mass. That's why it's not a strange thing that the Red King also can convert mana into magical power of fire. Are you telling me that they can use the magical power of fire forever? Theoretically. Seriously? Said Kanzaki with a shocked face. Aisha was pondering something while looking at the screen. Had the Red King used magical power of fire for its recovery? If yes, it means that the Red King could potentially recover forever. But the biggest problem was, the dragon on the TV screen was covered in flame. The color of the flame gradually turned dark. Thus, a dragon-shaped black flame swirls around the Red King. What in the heck is that? Kanzaki shouted in shock. Aisha's face became even darker than before. So it really is possible, huh? That might be the ultimate magic that no human can use yet, the fire magic of 4th level. Kanzaki looked intently at the TV screen. The black flame took the shape of an oriental dragon and then rushed toward the giant as if coiling around it. Yuma backpedaled. The black flame unleashed by the Red King was charging toward him. He tried to block the oriental dragon with the shield on his shoulder, but it dodged the shield as if it was alive. The black flame then coiled around his body and limbs. The flame with terrifying heat caught his body. The heat easily breached through his heat resistance. Yuma fell to his knees due to intense pain and heat. Not to mention that the black flame didn't go out. Now that his magical power of water had already been exhausted, he couldn't act recklessly like before again. Yuma was prepared to die, but then the black flame that coiled around his body suddenly vanished. Not knowing what happened, he raised his head. There, he saw that the black flame that was coiling around the Red King body had also vanished. What the hell is happening now? As dumbfounded as he was seeing that situation, he managed to prop himself back on his feet and look down on the dragon. Despite the smoke coming from their body and their stuttered steps, the dragon kept glaring at Yuma. Though Yuma was suffered from the black flame, he felt that his current condition was strange. What's happened to both the Red King and I? That strange phenomenon had also been transmitted to the TV screen seen by Aisha and company. Aisha. Why are both Yuma and the dragon's movement look strange when the black flame vanished? Aisha ignored Kanzaki, pondering on her own for a few moments. She touched her chin while looking at the TV screen. The dragon was losing their flame, and the giant seemed to be using up his strength. Why are they suddenly? Could it be? Do you know what happened? Aisha came to one conclusion. Both sides use mana. What? Kanzaki frowned upon hearing that, completely out of the loop with Aisha's remark. The two kings converted the mana in the air into their power. The amount of mana in the air is exhausted at once due to their rapid consumption. Does that mean the Red King can't use their flame anymore? Yes. At least until the mana in the air recovered. Hell yeah. Yuma can finally go all out. Aisha heaved a sigh with an astonished face. You fool. When I say the mana in the air got exhausted, it means that Yuma won't be able to maintain his gigantization. It seems Yuma himself has noticed that fact. The black giant on the TV screen staggered as he stood back, his shoulders heaving up and down. He felt power was leaving his body. He had no idea why, but he knew that the power of the giant couldn't be maintained for long. The Red King before him seems to be in agony too. He knew that this was the only time to defeat the dragon. Yuma braced his legs. He hit his knee as he invoked his bloody awe again. The glowing red lines appeared on his body. He only had a few more minutes left to fight. The effect of the poison tortured him from the inside. And he was tortured by incredible heat from outside. And his power dwindling by seconds. Defeat was inevitable if he could beat the dragon with this attack. Yuma grits his teeth. He braced his leg and ran forward. The ground shook with each of his steps, sending a cloud of dust in the air. I'll bet everything on this attack. Chapter 193, Resounding Roar. Pulling his left arm. The red dragon raised their face, but their movement seemed to be sluggish. Yuma had no intention to play along with his opponents while he raised his gear to top gear at once. He stamped his right foot on the ground. Unable to bear over 60 tons of weight plus the stepping force, the concrete beneath his feet broke to pieces. Yuma ignored the tactic and nailed a left hook onto the dragon's face. The Dragon King's face got distorted by the punch. Their head tilted so much, losing their balance at the same time. Yuma didn't stop here. He pressed forward with his left foot and nailed a straight right into the dragon's abdomen. His fist easily broke the steel-like scale and pierced the dragon's abdomen. The dragon vomited the contents of their stomach in agony. But that wasn't the end. Yuma grits his teeth to endure pain and unleashes combo attacks with both hands. Every single one of his attacks destroyed the dragon's body. The Red King couldn't do anything but defend against such a relentless onslaught. They had injuries all over their bodies, and blood was flowing out from those injuries. Naturally, their wound recovered again, but the recovery speed was clearly slower than before. The recovery speed is slower than before. I can do this. He unleashed the sword from his right gauntlet and brandished to decapitate the dragon's neck. But, the sword stopped. It couldn't decapitate the neck. It didn't have enough sharpness since it wasn't enhanced with water magic. But that wasn't enough to make him give up. Yuma retracted his sword, conjured spikes on both of his fists, and unleashed a barrage of punches again. The punches easily tore the dragon's flesh, causing it to bleed heavily. And even without spitting flame, the dragon's body was really hot. The fists that he used to punch the Red King felt like they were on fire. Not to mention that the sprayed dragon's blood was also akin to magma. Yuma receives damage even while attacking. Yet he didn't stop. He keeps nailing one punch after another using all of his remaining stamina, beating the dragon's head with a backhand blow, unleashing a roundhouse kick when it staggered. The dragon fell on top of the rubble and rolled on the ground. The ground shook. A cloud of dust rose in the air. Then Yuma nailed a liver blow into the flank of the dragon, who tried their best to stand up. Yuma's left punch pierced the dragon's flank. In pain, the dragon spun their body to attack Yuma with their tail. Since the shoulder shield defense wouldn't protect him in time, Yuma took the attack from head-on. The attack didn't cause an explosion, but its sheer force blew Yuma more than 30 meters. The ground shook as the giant fell. The tremor had also caused the building around him to collapse. Yuma tried to get on his feet again, but he couldn't feel any power in his body. I'm about to reach my limit, eh? He managed to stand up again somehow and braced his legs after he had done so. He took a deep breath. The Red King before him also had various gashes all over their body. But at this rate, their injuries and the magical power might recover, and they could use fire breath again. Yuma had no way to block that without his water magic. That's why now was the only chance to defeat the Red King. Thus, Yuma used his bloody ore again. Countless red lines appeared on his skin. Limit release. That should be able to defeat that guy. Yuma was unconscious when he defeated the Chimera in the Black Dungeon. Thus, Aisha told him that he could only unleash his full power after releasing all his limiters. In short, the Yuma, when defeating the Chimera, was more powerful than the current Yuma. Yuma focused his mind. His body was battered from the inside and outside thanks to the poison and the flame of the Red King. Thus he had to completely focus on body and mind to release his limiter. He made a beeline toward the Red King, unleashed the gauntlet sword from his right hand, and stabbed it into the dragon's abdomen. The sword pierced the dragon's abdomen, causing the dragon to stagger backwards. Blood sprayed in the air when Yuma pulled his sword, but he ignored them. He nailed his left hand, which had been transformed into a hook, to the tip of the dragon's shoulder, breaking the dragon's shoulder bone. I'm not done yet. After surpassing the limit both in body and mind, Yuma's physical strength shoots through the roof. He crushed the dragon's head with a headbutt, tearing their flesh and breaking their bones at the same time. The dragon was bleeding like there was no tomorrow from their face. The dragon staggered back again, but Yuma didn't let them go. He grabbed their head and their wings with enough power to crush them. He tore the Red King's wings and unleashed a frontal kick at the same time. The dragon was blown back more than 100 meters due to the kick, and fell on the ground, raising a cloud of dust. The dragon's body spasmed inside the cloud of dust. Unable to stand up, Yuma charged toward the Red King without a moment of delay. His running speed was so fast that it left an afterimage. After making a beeline toward the dragon, who couldn't move anymore, he kicked the dragon's body. The kick sent the Red King body flying in the air, crashing into the building behind it. Yuma, pursuing the dragon again, grabbed their head with his right hand. He felt as if his hand was fried in the boiling oil, but he didn't let go of the dragon's head. He stared at the tail that hit the ground wildly and then stomped onto it. The dragon roared in pain, trying to get away from the giant's iron grip. The giant pulled his left fist. He created a few sharp spikes on the surface of his fist and nailed that fist into the dragon's body without a shred of hesitation. Face, shoulder, arm, chest, abdomen. He keeps punching relentlessly even after that. So many people saw that spectacle. Naturally, the government official and specialist in the Prime Minister's official residence had seen that scene too. The people who were confined in the shelter and the seekers who saw the scene with their own eyes. Everyone held their breath as they saw the battle between He Dragon and the giant. The Dragon King destroyed their city and pushed them to the brink of despair. That monster, the strongest dragon, was about to be killed. Everyone raised their cheer. They were cheering till they felt like their throat was about to be torn. They were cheering for the giant to defeat the dragon. They were cheering for the black armor that they cursed to no end before. Rua, who saw such a spectacle from the rooftop of the building, was deep in thought. Yuma shouldn't be in proper condition to fight, and yet, the giant let go of the dragon's head and unleashed a relentless attack on the dragon's abdomen. His hands were moving so fast that they left an after image. The dragon roared in agony, vomiting blood from their mouth. The buildings around them were destroyed due to their fight. Yuma, please be safe. Yuma, who didn't take a breath at all when he unleashed a barrage of punches, finally stopped. The dragon used that chance to unleash a fireball, a seemingly last-ditch effort. That fireball looks far weaker than the dragon's previous fireball. But that didn't change the fact that Yuma still felt like he was doused with boiling oil. Yuma's face warped in pain. He wanted to get away or fall on his knees due to exhaustion. Yet he grits his teeth and takes another step forward. He pointed his left shoulder armor to the dragon and rammed it toward the latter. The ramming attack pulverized the bones in the dragon's body. Yuma didn't stop. He ran just like that to pierce the dragon with the spike on the shoulder shield. He kept pushing the dragon through several buildings and finally nailed the dragon into the Imperial Capital Hotel, which was located around 300 meters from his previous position. More than half of the hotels that escaped the previous destruction had finally been destroyed. The dragon was lying powerlessly, unable to move anymore. Yuma staggered back too, but he grits his teeth and approaches the dragon. He grabbed the head and the tail of the dragon, and lifted the dragon. Yuma instinctively realized that the giant body couldn't be maintained much longer, meaning that this was the last attack. Yuma threw the dragon high in the air. The limp giant body then falls under the pull of gravity. Yuma clenched his fists. The red lines across his skin glowing even stronger and darker. This is the end. He focused his entire power and kicked the dragon that fell right in front of him. The impact of his most powerful kick ever created a powerful shockwave that destroyed the building around him, and swept the seekers who watched the fight from the rooftop of the building. The kick launched the dragon's body high in the air, spraying rain of blood until the dragon's body lost its momentum and fell back to the ground. Many building in Tokyo was destroyed due to the raid of the dragons. Amidst the ransacked metropolis, a certain building was still stood tall, a steel tower of red and white color with 4 legs. The symbol of this city, the Red King, falls right on top of the Tokyo Tower. Thus, the sharp tip of the tower pierced through the red body of the dragon. The monster raised an agonizing wail. Unable to withstand the dragon's weight, the Tokyo Tower's legs bent all over the place. Finally, the tower reached its limit and fell along with the Red King, raising a cloud of dust. The Red King that sprawled on the ground then stopped moving and burst into countless sands. Part of the sand got carried by the wind and flew up in the clear sky of Tokyo. The seekers who saw that spectacle from the location, the people who saw the same spectacle from the monitor, all of them were at a loss for words as they saw that spectacle. Yuma managed to somehow not collapse on the spot. The Red King had been defeated. But he had another job left to do. Yuma opened his legs and shoulders wide, raising his arms as he looked up. He put more power into his abdomen, opened his mouth and roared so loudly to the point that it resounded in the entire Kanto region. Hearing that, a few hundred remaining ancient dragons escaped at once. The roar of the giant told them that this was the Black King's turf. The dragons who lost their king couldn't hope to defeat him. Part of them returned to the Red Dungeon in Ibaraki, while the rest ran with tails between their legs to leave Japan as fast as they could. Yuma could only relax his vigilance after he confirmed that all the dragons had left. The black giant then fell on his knees, gradually lost its shape, and turned into a metal sphere. The metal sphere was getting smaller and smaller until it revealed a tattered figure of a human. Yuma had passed out with a satisfied face. Act 7, Fetal movement of the king, instrumentalist of wind and insect. Chapter 194, Reparation. A few days had elapsed after the Red King had been defeated. Japan regained its peace after all the dragons left Japan's territory. But Japan had also suffered enormous damage due to the dragon's attack. Over 10 million people across the country were killed during the dragon's raid, not to mention that most of Tokyo had also been destroyed. At first, many people were dismayed by the impending disaster, but certain news changed everything. The news is that the one who defeated the Red King and repelled the dragons is the Black Armor, right? The news was spread by the Sun Press. They were the ones who did a live report from the site under the emergency situation that was broadcasted on their website, and ironically they were also the ones who spread the news about the Black Armor being a human. Most people were bewildered when they saw that news. No one could confirm the truth. But if that was the truth, it meant that the government was trying to defeat the very person who could save them. That information spread like wildfire due to the sheer amount of damage and chaos caused by this incident. The government's side received a lot of bashing for not revealing this information. When the government was racking its brain to think of a way to get out of this situation, there was a rush of people running into the University Hospital of the Metropolitan. They ran along the corridor after passing the automatic front door. The room they were looking for was located on the 3rd floor, and a few policemen were stationed to guard the door of the room. They showed their ID card, then rushed into the room in a hurry. Yuma. Entering the room while breathing roughly was Yuma's childhood friend. Kt, kt. Rue called out to her. His voice was by no means bright. There were around a dozen people in that 20 tatami mats room with a bedroom placed in its center. Kt was walking timidly to the center. The one lying in the bed was the patient whose entire body was covered in a bandage. His face was also wrapped in a bandage. But Kt knew the identity of the patient. Yuma. How did he end up like that? She asked Rue as if pleading to the latter. Rue couldn't even bring himself to look at his childhood friend's face while replying to her. He is in critical condition. His body is covered with burnt wounds. Even if we manage to save his life, he won't be able to live normally again, ever. No way. It was at a loss for words, hearing that, and looked at Yuma again. Her childhood friend was lying in bed. Sitting by his sides were women who wore uniforms different from the nurses and the doctors in this hospital. They closed their eyes, holding their hands on top of Yuma's body. What is that person doing? Hearing Kt's question, Rue looked at the woman. They are Messiah. The government dispatched them to heal Yuma. They're the main reason we barely managed to save Yuma's life. Kt's eyes opened wide in shock upon hearing that information. Since Kt herself was working in the company that was venturing into medical treatment, she naturally knew about the Messiah. But even the best Messiah in Japan only had around 1000 mana index. Thus she knew that it was far from enough to heal the critical wound. Rue. Yes, she can't heal him. All she can do is barely manage to keep him alive. Lies. Lies. Unable to suppress her feelings, she looked at Yuma. Tears trickled down her face. Kt took her handkerchief to wipe her tears, and then one of the women beside Yuma spoke to her. Good grief. It's only natural that he is so badly beaten like this because he is challenging that kind of monster from the front. And the doctor even said that his body was poisoned. His being on the verge of death is just a natural result when you add such a critical wound to his already weakened body. Then looked at the long-haired woman clad in white who said those words. She looked like a doctor at a glance, but apparently, it was wrong. Oi Aisha. Do you have a method to save him? Asked the tall man with a mustache who stood beside the woman called Aisha. There's hardly any way to save him. Any normal person would have died in the same situation. The reason he managed to hang in there is thanks to his body that got enhanced after consuming a lot of black magic ore. We can't do anything in this situation. Aisha's voice vanished at the end. Despite her harsh remark, her gaze toward Yuma was filled with affection. Does she by chance someone related to his job? When Kt was standing still, unable to say anything, the door of the room opened again. Men in suits then entered the room. Excuse me, everyone. May I have a bit of your time? Everyone exchanged glances. Albeit bewildered, they realized that there was nothing they could do even if they were staying here. Thus Kt decided to follow the man in suit who said I wanted to have some private chat. They were then led to a parlor room with black furniture on the top floor of the hospital. Aisha, Kanzaki, Amasawa, and Kt. Everyone had already sat on the sofa, wondering about what kind of shady story they would hear this time. Sitting on the other side was SDF Assistant Vice Minister, Serizawa. Aisha knew Serizawa's face and name, but she never spoke in person with him. Serizawa cleared his throat and then looked at the people in front of him. Thank you very much for your time. Just as you already know, Mitaka-san is in critical condition due to his injury and might lose his life. We already looking for a way to save his life. Ain't you and your cahoots who tried to kill Yuma? Otherwise, the Red King won't take a detour and come to Japan. Ruya and Kid look really surprised to hear this piece of information. I really have nothing to say in that regard. Aisha snorted scornfully, looking at Serizawa, who said those words with a bitter face. The matter I want to talk to you about is how to save Mitaka-san. No one but him can stop the monster that currently rampaging around the world. Kid frowned upon hearing that, but she got the point that it had something to do with saving Yuma. She leaned forward and opened her mouth. Does that mean you have a way to save Yuma? We do have a way to save him. What? There's a way? Serizawa paused for a moment before he gave a reply. Japan has a white magic gem with a mana index over 2000. The problem is that no one can use it, Aisha replied while touching her chin. I heard about that too. The problem is that there's no messiah with a mana index over 2000 to use healing magic on Yuma. Can you prepare a messiah for that? It's possible. There's research in China about enchanting human body with magic gem. Aisha frowned upon hearing that. Enchanting human body with magic gem. Has it been perfected? It should be still under development. I heard there's rejection if the test subject has no affinity. They don't mention it in the news, but I heard a few testers are dead during the experiment. Correct. Properly speaking, we shouldn't use this imperfect technique. Kanzaki stood up with a furious face upon hearing the truth behind the technique. Then don't use that damn technique. Serizawa didn't show any reaction to that outburst, only looking straight into Kanzaki's eyes. That's the only way left to save Mitaka-san. Kanzaki flinched upon hearing her calm reply. Everyone in that room had also realized that this was the only way left. That's why I want to ask everyone to participate in the test to see if you have the aptitude to use white magic gem. We cannot gather more people since the precision is quite low. That's why. Please. Silence descended in that room. Everyone had to risk their life to save Yuma. It was only natural for them to show a bewildered reaction, but, the heck, if that's all I need to save Yuma, then sure, bring it on that inspection or whatever it is. Kanzaki spoke first, even faster than Rua, who was about to speak. Count me in. I have to participate in this. Thank you very much. Then you have to fill. Serizawa expressed his gratitude upon hearing the two immediate answers and took out some documents, but suddenly interrupted before he finished his words. Me too. Everyone's line of sight was instantly drawn to Kt. Let me. To take the inspection too. Chapter 195, Compatible Person. Aisha could only be staring dumbfoundedly as Kt offered herself to participate in the inspection. Wait a minute. Do you even have mana? This technique shouldn't work unless you have some amount of mana. Serizawa agreed with Aisha's remark. Yes, it doesn't have to be a high mana index, but the minimum condition is to have mana. That's why I called out the seeker. Kid didn't change her decision even after hearing Serizawa's explanation. Don't worry. I participate in dungeon experience during student day. It's a little bit, but I do have mana. I have it checked. Serizawa got overwhelmed by Kid. He could only hear her explanation and said I see, no problem then. With a ghastly pale face. In the end, Kanzaki, Rua, and Kid took the aptitude test. Kanzaki said that he would ask his employees to take the test too. Kid had also asked about her acquaintance. Serizawa could only shake his head when he saw even Rua speaking to the people from Elcid. No need. Elcid and the other major dungeon-related company have already received notification from the government. They're going to spread the news to the small and medium companies. I see. But it's not like I can just stand idly without doing anything. I'll go back to the company and try to persuade them. Rua stood up and left the room. Since the meeting with Serizawa had ended, everyone left their seat too. I'll go back to my company too, said Kanzaki, standing up with a pumped face, but Aisha had a bad premonition about this whole situation. A few days later, the government invited people from the police department, SDF, or those from the company related to Dungeon, basically everyone with mana to take an aptitude test. However, many people hesitate to take the aptitude test upon hearing that the safety was unreliable. As a result, not that many people come to take the test of aptitude. Amidst them was, "This is the place, right, Father?" "Yeah, this should be the place to take the inspection." Parking lot in a certain building of the Ministry of Defense. Kanzaki, Maker, and Tanaka from D-Minor came down from the jeep. "This is the place of inspection for Tokyo." Kanzaki confirmed the location from the letter of invitation sent to his email. "According to the invitation, we have to go up to the 3rd floor." Tanaka smiled wryly, seeing Kanzaki, who was about to light his cigarettes. "President, I think you shouldn't smoke for now." "You? I see." Kanzaki regretted immediately as he already lit his cigarette. Maker aside, "Are you really sure about this, Tanaka-san? They'll plant magic gems in your body if you have aptitude. This isn't a joking matter." Tanaka shook his head, smiling carefreely hearing Kanzaki's worries. "What are you talking about? It's worth taking such a risk if it's to save Yuma-kun. I mean, he defeated that giant dragon, you know? Meaning that he is my benefactor." Tanaka replied without a shred of hesitation. "What about you, Maker?" "Naturally, rather, I wish I was a compatible person. Don't you feel anxious, Dad?" "Nonsense. Those measly magic gems ain't gonna kill me. Let's go." The trio walked triumphantly into the Ministry of Defense building. A few days after Yuma was admitted to the hospital, the Seekers, starting from the Howl of Thunder Beast, and those who were invited by the government, underwent an aptitude test. Their number was close to 1,000, but Ministry of Defense's office building. Serizawa was sitting in one of the research rooms. "How's the result? Have you found people with aptitude?" The researcher shook their head upon hearing Serizawa's question. "We have yet to see all the results, but we haven't found people with aptitude. At this rate, we might have no choice but to forcefully transplant the magic gem to the person with the highest aptitude." "I see." Serizawa bit his lips. The precision was exceedingly low, and the burden that it put on the object's body was huge. In short, the recoil of using this technique would kill its user. Properly speaking, they shouldn't use such an inhuman method, but this was the only option left. Some decisions made by the upper echelon often create a huge number of victims. They had no choice but to do this. Mitaka Yuma must be saved at all costs. Serizawa was read the documents piled up on his desk while lamenting his own powerlessness. Prime Minister Iwaki lost 10% of his approval rate due to harsh criticism from the citizens and his inability to maintain his reign. Iwaki himself had been hospitalized due to poor health and was unable to make an appearance. Though many government officials said that he just faking illness like usual, some rumors said that he really was suffering from mental illness this time. The ministers were resigning from their posts one after another. But since they couldn't hold an emergency election, the ruling party decided to take the matter at hand for the time being. And then, the one chosen as the new prime minister was, congratulations, Prime Minister Takakura. Prime Minister's official residence. Serizawa bowed politely to Takakura. Takakura could only smile wryly upon hearing that. It was just a position that no one wanted to fall into. "Even I have absolutely no idea what to do about this situation. Becoming Prime Minister from Minister of Defense is an exception, but I guess it's a valid reason." Takakura heaved a sigh. The public criticism had only gotten higher and higher by day. "It made me wonder for how long these cabinets going to endure this." Serizawa said nothing. The birth of the Takakura cabinet happened due to the unprecedented calamity that struck Japan, demolishing a huge part of Tokyo. Even the ruling party wouldn't be able to rein the situation under control for too long. Nevertheless, Serizawa knew that Takakura was indeed the best and the only person who could handle this situation. Thus, he became the current Prime Minister of Japan. Takakura sat in the black, luxurious office chair in the Prime Minister's office to check their level of comfort. Had it not for the current emergency situation, he would be delighted to sit in that chair. Thus Takakura had mixed feelings about this situation. "Prime Minister, I come to give a report about the aforementioned test. It's finished." Naturally, Takakura had also known about this. He maintained a seated posture, looking at Serizawa's face. "So, have you found a compatible person?" "The government gives its all to this enchanting human body with magic gem plan. If this plan failed, Mitaka Yuma, otherwise known as the Black Armor, would die. Once he died, humankind would lose all means to resist the monster's invasion. That's why they did everything to save him. Not only for Japan, it was for the Earth itself. Unfortunately, no one in Japan is perfectly compatible with the white magic gem. I see. Takakura's shoulders dropped in disappointment. They did have a way to save Mitaka Yuma, but they didn't have the person to execute the plan. Seeing Takakura pondering in silence, Serizawa stepped forward. But there's someone with the highest degree of compatibility. According to the researcher, it's high enough to enable that person to use the white magic gem. What kind of person is that person? Serizawa took out a piece of paper with the photograph from the file that he brought with him and showed it to Takakura. Takakura picked up the paper and confirmed its content. Written on the paper was the profile of a young girl, and her compatibility ratio. Serizawa continued on after a short pause. Shizuaki Nozuki, Mitaka Yuma's childhood friend. Chapter 196, Messiah. 3 days after the inspection, Kt received a call from the Minister of Defense. She guided me into a parlor room. It was a chic room with expensive wooden ornaments and a sofa covered with black leather. Kt sat on the sofa and placed her shoulder bag by her side. After a few minutes of waiting that felt so long, the door of the parlor room opened up again. My apologies for the wait. The one who entered was Serizawa, with whom she had spoken before. It's just a few minutes, Kt replied as she stood up. Serizawa gestured with his hand for Kt to sit down again. Kt sits again, facing Serizawa. The man before her was wearing a neat suit, definitely that of an elite man. That was Kt's impression of Serizawa. Serizawa coughed lightly and then started speaking. As you already know, the government performed an inspection a few days ago, and we found out that you, Yakino's-san, have the highest compatibility ratio. For this reason, we contacted you again to ask if you're willing to participate in a clinical trial. Is that mean? Can I save Yuma? Yes, it's quite possible. Kt clenched her fists and then looked at Serizawa. I'll participate. If there's something that I can do, then it's more reason for me to participate. Serizawa was bewildered for a moment hearing Kt's immediate reply. Yakino-san, I have to remind you that this clinical trial is really dangerous. Are you really sure about this? We will give you some time to discuss this with your pair. No need to tell anything to my parent. This is my own decision. The consequence is mine to bear. In fact, she didn't even tell her parent that she went to the Ministry of Defense. Naturally, the same goes for Rui. Decided to participate regardless of the danger. At first, she had no idea how Yuma ended up in a critical condition like that. Later on, Rui told her that the reason for Yuma's injury was because he just fought an extremely powerful monster, and played a big role in repelling them. Kt couldn't hide her shock upon knowing that the injuries were due to that battle. She had never expected that he would go to such a dangerous place. Then mulling over the fact that she did nothing while Yuma was putting his life on the line, she recalled how she could only tremble in fear when he dragons raided Tokyo. Kt couldn't do anything in that situation. Please let me do this. I will save Yuma. Serizawa couldn't refuse her when the person herself was more than willing to bet on her life. The enchanting human body with magic gem Operation Foot was executed on the same day. The government embedded the diamond white magic gem in their possession in Kt's chest and installed special metal mind from the dungeon on her body. The basic principle was the same as the enchanted armament, but there was no doubt that embedding a magic gem into a human body was a suicidal act. On the other hand, this was a miraculous technique that allowed humans to use powerful magic without sufficient mana. The day after the operation to enchant the human body, "Are you okay?" "No problem," replied Kt Serizawa. Currently, they are in the sick room used by Yuma. Coming along with Kt and Serizawa were 2 researchers who came to see the effect of human enchantment. Kt sat by the bedside, looking at Yuma's face. Her childhood friend didn't even twitch. There were horrible burn wounds under the bandage. Properly speaking, she should have taken a break after the operation to embed the magic gem. But Yuma's condition deteriorated with each passing second. Thus, the government had no choice but to allow Kt to come and use healing magic on Yuma immediately. Properly speaking, Kt was also not in top condition after the operation. But she kept telling herself that she was the only one who could heal Yuma. She held her right hand above Yuma's body. "Keep your focus, Yakino-san. With your compatibility ratio, you should be able to use healing magic. Nodded to Serizawa and focused her mind. She didn't tell anyone that she came to this place today. Not her parent, friends, even Rui. The reason is that she did this for her own convenience. She didn't want to make them worry about her. She just wanted to save Yuma. Closed her eyes and sank into the deepest part of her mind. Finally, brilliant white light appeared from her right hand. Both Serizawa and the researcher gasped upon seeing that brilliant light. It means that enchanting human body with magic gem has been successfully performed in Japan. The glow became brighter and brighter, filling the room with comfortable warmth. His eyes opened wide, satisfied when looking at Yuma's condition. I felt really good. Did I have some sort of nice dream? I can't remember what kind of dream it was, but it feels as if I met Yuma. Yuma's eyes opened slowly. She had few experiences of waking up in an unfamiliar room, but she felt reassured this time. He saw a lot of familiar faces around him. "Ooh! Have you woken up, Yuma?" The first one to shout was the president. He looked at Yuma's face with faced smile. "He's safe and sound, right? Are you okay, Yuma-kun?" Tanaka and Maker heaved a sigh of relief. "What a relief. I'll be in trouble if my best research subject, namely, is dead." The one who snorted with her hands inside the pockets of her coat was Aisha. She was as harsh as usual, but she worrying about him. "Yuma. Thank goodness." Rui. Yuma smiled lightly seeing the crying face of his childhood friend. "What's with the crying face? I'm not dead yet." If my memory serves me right, I should have passed out right after I defeated the giant dragon. I should have been beaten up pretty badly by that dragon's flame back then, yet there was no such wound on my body. It seems the metal slime body was really powerful. "Your parents are coming too, Yuma. They're currently listening to the doctor's position." I see now." His parent heaved a sigh of relief. Tokyo was devastated. Yuma's house was safe since it was located on the outskirts. Seeing that his parent, President, Aisha, and Rua was saved, then, what about Kt? Everyone was startled the moment Yuma said that name. Yuma wondered why everyone's face stiffened. Since her house is on the outskirts just like us, she must be safe and sound. But I can't help but worry about her situation. "Are you in touch with Kt?" he asked Rui, who looked down with a dejected face. And instantly felt something was wrong seeing the other people's reaction. Could it be? "She's killed by the Ri." "She's not, Yuma." Rui finally spoke to Yuma with a grim face. "The dragon doesn't attack. She comes to visit you in this room after all." "I see, that's a relief," said Yuma, heaving a sigh of relief. But his face changed when he heard Rua. "But right after that she died." "Eh?" At first, he had no idea what Rua was talking about. Kt is dead. Chapter 197, Despair and Hope. Yuma's field of view turned white for a moment. He couldn't comprehend what Rua was trying to tell him. "Are you telling me that Kt is dead?" Rua didn't say anything, he just clenched his teeth in silence. The same went for the people around them. No one said anything. The whole situation was too ambiguous. Yuma gulped. Yuma came down from his bed and stood on his feet. The people around him tried to stop him, but he ignored all of them. He felt as if his body was drained of power. He didn't know whether it was because he had just woken up or simply because of the scream in his heart. He opened the door of the hospital room while leaning on the wall. "I have to go." Kt. He walked along the corridor propped up on his shoulder by Rui. Aisha, Kanzaki, Maker, and Tanaka were following silently from behind. Yuma kept walking in silence. Standing ahead of them was Serizawa. "Over there," he said while opening the door of the room. It was as if he had expected this situation. It wasn't a sick room. It was a morgue. There was a bed placed in the center of the room. A figure lay on top of the bed, covered with a white cloth from head to toe. Yuma walked to the side of the bed and stood dumbfounded when he arrived. He turned over the cloth and gasped. There was the familiar face of his childhood friend who had been with him for years. Her face was so beautiful at the moment, it was as if she would wake up and smile at him anytime soon. Seeing Yuma mutter her name, Rui called out from behind. Participated in the enchanting human body with magic gem experiment that the government conducted. They planted a white magic gem in her body to allow her to use powerful healing magic. Yuma turned around and looked at Rue the moment he heard that. Why did she do that? To save you, Yuma. Yuma was at a loss for words the moment he heard Rue's answer. To save me? You were in critical condition back then. That's why the government took such drastic measures to save you. They forcefully transplanted a magic gem with a high mana index into a human body to allow her to use the powerful magic in the said magic gem. And participated in that experiment? Yuma's hands moved on their own, grabbing Rue by his collar. Why didn't you stop her? You should have been able to do so. Rue grabbed Yuma's arms. Because K didn't tell anyone about this. Neither I nor her parents knew about this. She didn't tell anyone to save you. The hands that grabbed Rue's collar relaxed. Yuma turned around again to look at Kt, his childhood friend who could never speak anymore. The friend and woman he had been in love with for a long time had risked her life and died for him. For me? Why did you do that? You fool! Yuma cried aloud as he took her cold hand. He fought to save everyone, yet the girl he loved ended up dying for him. Because of him. His heart was filled with grief and anger that found no outlet. The people around him didn't say anything, but Aisha was the first one who spoke to him. It's still too early to give up, Yuma-kun. Eh? Yuma stopped crying and raised his head the moment he heard Aisha's voice. Hands in the pocket of her lab coat, Aisha looked at Yuma. There is no proof about this, and neither can I confirm its validity. But there is a rumor about the white magic gem. Rumor? Yuma wiped the tears from his eyes, turned around, and looked at Aisha. It says that consuming a lot of white magic gems will allow someone to use healing magic of a higher dimension. Is that even possible? Yuma asked with a face of disbelief, but Aisha shook her head. It's just a rumor. No one has confirmed it so far. The reason is that no human has reached that realm. But Aisha continued while staring into Yuma's eyes. What if someone with a gargantuan amount of mana like you tried it? Yuma felt as if his head had just been zapped by lightning. Yes, I have plenty of mana left. I can use as much magic as I want as long as there's a magic gem. Thank you, Aisha-san. I'll do it. I'll collect white magic gems and save Kt. The tips of Aisha's lips rose up when she heard that. She wasted no time and turned toward Serizawa. Serizawa-san, how many white magic gems are left owned by the Japanese government? I'll check it out right away, replied Serizawa upon hearing that question. Aisha walked to the side of the bed where they kept Kt's corpse and looked at the girl. If the dead are revived, it might cause an uproar. When Serizawa returned, he brought Yuma and Seo to the parlor room. You have no magic gems left. Yuma frowned upon hearing Serizawa's explanation. Yes, the most powerful white magic gem had already been used by Iakino-san, and the rest had already been used too. As for the ones owned by private companies, they were gone when the dragons raided Tokyo. Serizawa clenched his teeth in frustration after he explained the situation to Yuma and Seo. The people gathering in this room were Yuma, Aisha, Kanzaki, and Rue. The four of them sat across from Serizawa. There really are none left? Kanzaki asked with a frown on his face. The white magic gems owned by the government range from 1,000–2,000 mana index, right? Yes, it was only that. Yuma was crestfallen. Just when he thought they had a chance to save Kt, he met a stumbling block immediately. He was completely at a loss about what to do now. Seeing the crestfallen Yuma, Rue raised his voice. Don't worry, Yuma. We can dive into the White Dungeon in Hokkaido to gather the gems. We should be able to find a lot of white magic gems in there. Not to mention that I'll go together with you. Nice idea. Kanzaki agreed with Ruya and added, count me in. Gathering magic gems should be a piece of cake. Contrary to the high-spirited Kanzaki, Aisha clicked her tongue instead. Are you guys stupid or what? White magic gems are known for their extremely low yield. Not to mention that the White Dungeon in Japan isn't that big. Do you know how much time it'll take if you just rely on White Dungeons in Japan? The trio crestfallen together after being rebuked by Aisha. Yuma aside, both Ruya and Kanzaki were also racking their brains. Aisha shook her head seeing them like that. There's a more efficient way to gather a lot of white magic gems at once. Yuma raised his face immediately upon hearing Aisha's remark. And that way is? It's really easy. Make a request to the countries worldwide that possess white magic gems. Chapter 198, Moment of Respite. Silence descended in the room the moment everyone heard Aisha's explanation. The first to speak was Rui. Surely, the fastest method is to obtain the magic gems from every country. But is that even possible given the current situation? Everyone was thinking the same thing. In a world plunged into chaos, magic gems were essential for self-defense. A valuable commodity no country would easily relinquish. It entirely depends on negotiation. And that part is your job, right? Aisha added, looking at Serizawa. Why yeah. Depending on the negotiation, it might be possible. Really? Yuma leaned forward eagerly upon hearing that, but Serizawa evaded him. The decision isn't mine to make. It depends entirely on the upper brass. You're right. Yuma sank back into his chair. Diplomatic decisions of this magnitude weren't made lightly. Seeing Yuma fall silent, Serizawa quickly added, rest assured, I have connections with the Prime Minister. I'll try to persuade him. You should spend time with your family, Mitako-san. I heard part of your home was damaged. The government has already prepared a new house for your family, so Yuma finally felt at ease after Serizawa's explanation. It was true, he couldn't handle this matter alone. He needed to wait for now. In a certain place in Tokyo, Yuma arrived with his parents who had managed to escape the dragon's rampage. Thank goodness. I'm so relieved that we're all safe, even though those days were. His mother opened the door and entered the mansion. His father followed, then Yuma, and lastly, come on, Mamizo. Woof. His pet dog barked as he followed Yuma into the mansion. They entered and surveyed the house provided by the government. It was already furnished with everything they needed. The walls and floors in good condition. This place is nice. We won't have to worry until our home is repaired. His father was satisfied with the mansion. Later, Yuma and his parents sat in the living room to discuss everything that had happened. Yuma sat in Seiza position, gently petting Mamizo who was grooming himself. It was a calming moment for him. Mamizo closed his eyes contentedly and rolled onto his back. You seem so carefree, Yuma said, scratching Mamizo's belly. His parents exchanged glances. After a moment, his father spoke up. Yuma, what happened to Kid-chan? It's truly tragic. We were shocked when we heard. Ah, that's. Yuma's gave a vague reply. He knew he couldn't tell his parents about the possibility of reviving Kid-chan. Came to see us when we lost contact with you suddenly. She's such a kind girl. Yuma looked up at his mother's words. Kid came? Yes. Around the time the police came to our home after that article criticizing you appeared online, Kid-chan told us everything. And then, she passed away. Unable to hold back, his mother lowered her head. Yuma, do you know why Kid-chan died? She seemed perfectly healthy when she visited us. I'm sorry, I have no idea. I see. To lose such a young girl so suddenly. His mother fell silent, and a heavy silence filled the room. After a while, his father spoke again. Yuma, I find it hard to believe, but is what they say in the media true? About you becoming something like a monster after becoming a seeker? Naturally, Yuma had been grappling with this issue for a long time. He prepared to lie to his parents. Yes, the change was due to magic. The reason for the exaggerated reactions is simply because this kind of transformation ability is very rare. There's no problem now that the misunderstanding has been cleared up. I see. So that's it. His father's face showed a mix of emotions. He didn't know what to say. Seeing this, Yuma lowered his gaze and resumed scratching Mamizo's belly. He didn't want to add more worries for them, but he still had something he needed to do, revive Kid at all costs. He didn't care about the other victims, he just wanted to save Kid. Serizawa summoned Yuma again to the Prime Minister's official residence. The building was partially damaged, but its facilities were still operational. Let's go, Yuma. Yes. Kanzaki was also present this time. Yuma and Kanzaki stepped out of the jeep as it stopped at the front door, then entered the entrance hall through the glass doors of the Prime Minister's official residence. Yuma, Rui, who had arrived earlier, was waiting in a black suit. Knowing it was related to Kid, Rui had joined the meeting. Seeing Rui's attire, Yuma and Kanzaki glanced at each other. Is something wrong? Rui asked, noticing the duo's exchange. No, it's nothing. Yuma replied, realizing it was too late to worry about their attire now. The trio was then led by the staff to the conference room. Upon arrival, they took their seats and waited until Serizawa arrived. "I apologize for the wait." Serizawa entered wearing an expensive-looking suit and placed a black file on the table. The trio tensed, and Serizawa took a deep breath before speaking. "Let's get straight to the point. Our side has managed to negotiate with them." "Really?" Yuma stood up upon hearing that. He saw a glimmer of hope in Savinged. Serizawa opened the file and explained while reviewing the contents. "Japan has defeated the Red King, and that news has spread throughout the world. We received numerous requests for support from countries worldwide. They won't be able to refuse if we ask for their magic gems in exchange for our assistance. This is thanks to your achievements, Mitaka-san." "Is that true?" Though Yuma himself didn't care much about it, the fact that he defeated the Red King had caused a huge stir worldwide. If they could obtain the white magic gem simply by defeating monsters, there was no better offer. "I'll do it. Which country do I need to visit?" Serizawa nodded and looked at the papers in his hands. "India has offered the most magic gems among the countries we negotiated with." "India?" Yuma clenched his fists, showing his determination. Suddenly, Rui spoke up. "India, could it be?" Serizawa nodded and then looked directly at Yuma. "They have two conditions: defeat the Green King and capture the Green Dungeon." Chapter 199, Restraint. Silence descended in the conference room. "Subjugation of the Green King and the Green Dungeon," Yuma muttered quietly. He had no idea what kind of monster it was, but he knew that it was on the same level as the Red King. As for the dungeon, he had no idea how tough it would be. But he had no other option. When Yuma was about to agree, Kanzaki suddenly raised his voice. "Are they screwing with us here? How many magic gems are they offering, asking us to conquer one of the deepest dungeons and subjugate that stupidly strong king on top of it?" The Indian government offered a white magic gem with a total mana index of 16,000. "Do you want to refuse such an offer?" The trio didn't say anything after hearing Serizawa's reply. No one in the room knew if that reward was appropriate. There was a possibility they could gather magic gems more efficiently. "Nevertheless, I'll take the job. When are we going to depart?" Kanzaki couldn't hide his shock at Yuma's quick agreement. "Are you sure about this? You almost died fighting the Red King, you know? You might really die this time." Yuma looked at Kanzaki with a resolute expression. "I'll even cross a sea of fire to save Kt. She put her life on the line for me. So now it's my turn to do the same for her." He'd already asked Aisha to care for Kt's body, but it couldn't be preserved forever. So even if he could use resurrection magic, her body needed to be in prime condition. This was a race against time. Hearing Yuma's words, Kanzaki's expression softened. "This damn kid can already say such manly things. Count me in." Following Kanzaki, Rui spoke up as well. "Me too. Let me know if you need my help. I want to save Kid too." Hearing Kanzaki and Rui, Yuma nodded, feeling confident. Although he told Serizawa he'd accept the commission, Serizawa didn't seem convinced. "I understand. I'll inform the Prime Minister that you're willing to take the commission. We'll prepare for your departure to India, but we have a small problem." "A problem?" Yuma cocked his head, curious. "The Prime Minister and I support you going abroad, but some Diet members disapprove, and they think your power is crucial for Japan's defense. If a monster like the Red King attacks again, you might be the only one who can defeat it." Kanzaki snorted angrily. "That's what the JSDF is for. Why should Yuma have to worry about that?" "We agree with you, but persuading them is our job. We'll push this plan forward to avoid any obstacles. But please be aware the new Prime Minister has just taken office, and things are still stabilizing internally." Despite the internal challenges, the conversation ended smoothly, and they prepared to leave. The next meeting would be scheduled later, and the government supported gathering the white magic gem. Yuma expressed his heartfelt gratitude to Serizawa. Finally, he saw hope for saving Kt. The four of them walked together toward the entrance. Suddenly, a loud voice called out from behind. "Are you the one called Mitaka Yuma?" Yuma turned to see a man in his 40s, dressed in a business suit, with several people following him. "Ogasawara-sensei." Serizawa said the name loudly. Yuma recognized the man from TV, A popular young Diet member, Ogasawara approached briskly, while Yuma recalled what he knew about the man. "You're Mitaka-kun, right? I'm Ogasawara, the chief cabinet secretary. I don't know what you discussed with the prime minister, but you're not allowed to leave the country. This is the ruling party's consensus, so you must obey." Ogasawara was tall, over 180 centimeters, and his height gave him an imposing presence as he looked down at Yuma. "Ogasawara-sensei, it's already been agreed to discuss this later. Please stop with such misleading statements." Ogasawara scoffed at Serizawa's remark. "Our faction backs Prime Minister Takakura. You know what that means, right, Serizawa?" "Yes, obviously." Serizawa was visibly shaken, as it was clear Ogasawara held higher authority. "Oi! Who the hell are you to come in here spouting nonsense?" Kanzaki stepped forward, unfazed by Ogasawara's government status. "And who are you? This matter has been decided and cannot be vetoed." Kanzaki was visibly angered by Ogasawara's high-handed attitude, and Yuma felt the same. "I'm going, no matter what you say." Ogasawara frowned at Yuma's unchanging determination. "It seems you don't understand. You're under house arrest for destroying Tokyo. If you refuse, you'll be detained by force." "He what?" Kanzaki gritted his teeth, ready to approach Ogasawara, but Yuma stopped him. "Don't stop me, Yuma. I really want to punch his face." Yuma quietly reassured Kanzaki. "It's okay, President. Let me handle this." Yuma stepped forward, staring directly into Ogasawara's eyes. "Are you trying to stop me with your authority?" Yuma's skin darkened, his clothes transformed into liquid metal. His body grew taller, and a horn sprouted from his forehead, enveloping him in muscular armor. Now towering over Ogasawara, the politician trembled in fear. "I dare you." Yuma tapped the wall lightly with his fist, creating a large hole and a web of cracks. Ogasawara fell back, trembling like a newborn fawn. "That's enough, Yuma." Though Rui advised restraint, Yuma hadn't planned to go further. He turned to leave with Kanzaki and Rui. Serizawa stood dumbfounded as the trio headed for the entrance. "But that appearance is too conspicuous. Can you go back to normal?" "I have to wait 5 minutes for the transformation effect to finish," Yuma replied to Yui. "Not a big deal," Kanzaki said casually, though staff nearby were trembling at the sight of the black armor. Seeing their fear, Yuma's body melted, turning into a small, round metal slime. "You can turn into that too?" Rui exclaimed in shock. "Yup. This one's less conspicuous, right? But since it'd be disruptive if I started bouncing, could you carry me?" "Eh? Ah, sure." Despite his surprise, Rui agreed. Yuma, in his metal slime form, leapt into Rui's arms, dragging him down. "It's so heavy." "Yuma, are you really this heavy?" "My body is made of metal, after all." "You should have warned me. I almost hurt my back." "My bad." The trio left the Prime Minister's official residence from the front entrance, chatting as they went. Chapter 200, New Seeker Team. The south observation deck of the Tokyo government office overlooked the devastated city below. A place that was once a popular tourist attraction was now deserted. A man in the building gazed at the destruction that had befallen Tokyo. The central streets were completely totaled. The rest of the city wasn't much better off. "As I thought, you really are in this place." The man turned around upon hearing someone call out to him from behind. His lips relaxed into a smile as he recognized the speaker. "How did you know that I'm in this place, Honda?" "I just asked my acquaintance in the JSDF, and they told me you might be here." "What are you thinking about? Care to share it with me?" Mikoshiba smiled at Honda's words. "You're right. I've been pondering a lot of things." The duo looked at the spectacle before them. The city they once knew had been devastated. Although it wasn't completely destroyed, the damage was severe. Had it not been for him, the result might have been even more devastating. Mikoshiba murmured in agreement. "Yeah, I heard you retired from the JGSDF. I had to take responsibility for what I did. Fortunately, I wasn't arrested for dereliction of duty." "Sorry, Mikoshiba. My request ended up destroying your whole career." Mikoshiba just snorted with a light smile on his face. "I never regret what I did back then. What about you? Has your position in the company been jeopardized?" "The president is furious. I've been dismissed from my post as general manager. But thanks to the current prime minister covering the issue, I haven't been fired from the company." The two smiled at each other before falling into silence. Both were concerned about each other but couldn't bring themselves to express it aloud. Yet, Honda had to address the reason for his visit. Mikoshiba, if you haven't decided on what to do next, how about coming to El Cid? Our company is more than willing to accept someone of your caliber. Mikoshiba looked at Honda and shook his head. I'm going to look for a job related to the reconstruction of Tokyo. Thank you for your kind offer, but I still have something left to do. I see. It can't be helped then. Well, it's a trivial matter for me. But what about him? He'll be in a difficult situation from here on. Honda nodded in agreement with Mikoshiba. Mitaka Yuma had no idea what he was supposed to do next. It was obvious that his future actions would cause a significant ripple in the world. For Mikoshiba and Honda, who were no longer in the center of the government circle, there was no way to know what would happen. They could only watch from the sidelines. A few days later, a few days after he destroyed the wall in the Prime Minister's official residence, Yuma received another invitation. He arrived at the conference room he had visited before and sat nervously in a chair, awaiting Serizawa. He felt uneasy about coming alone this time, fearing he might be reprimanded for the previous incident. However, Serizawa didn't seem to be concerned about that. Yuma breathed a sigh of relief. Mitaka-san, regarding the matter of your dispatch to India, there's an update. Yes, what happened to that matter? Yuma cleared his throat and swallowed nervously. It has been officially decided. Really? He unintentionally raised his voice, thrilled at the chance to save KT. The path to doing so had opened up, though we faced various opposition due to dissenting opinions from the cabinet. Prime Minister Takakura shut them all down. Sorry for the trouble. Thank you very much. Yuma had worried that resorting to violence might cause issues, not to mention the brute forcing involved. He couldn't help but thank the members of the Diet who approved his departure. But there's a condition attached to your departure. A condition? Yuma tilted his head, questioning the unexpected news. We have some concerns about dispatching Mitaka-san by himself. Previously, every country sent an entire Seeker clan to Japan. The other side won't accept just a single Seeker. Well, that makes sense, I guess. Additionally, problems are bound to arise if you're the only one dispatched. That's why we've decided to include a few people to act as your support. This is the government's condition. Does that mean all of them are Seekers? Yes. We've already selected suitable personnel from El Cid and Farmel. Since they're scheduled to arrive today, have you met them along the way? Eh? It's already been decided? Yuma was genuinely surprised that the matter had been settled so quickly. He was even more surprised by how they treated a Seeker from an elite company. Despite his anxiety about the one-sided decision, he quietly followed Serizawa when urged to sit. The others seemed to have been waiting in another room, so Yuma followed Serizawa. Here's the place. Serizawa stopped in front of a door, knocked, and said excuse me. He then entered the room, followed by Yuma. Too slow, we've been waiting for so long. Yuma's head shot up at the unexpected Kansai dialect. The speaker was Akito from Farmel, seated at the conference room table. Akito? What are you? Farmel thought it would be interesting, so they asked me to assist you. I see. Akito was already a surprise, but the other person made Yuma even more astonished. A certain brown-haired youth in a proper suit looked at Yuma with a gentle expression. Yuma, I'm the representative from El Cid assigned to help you. Honestly, I was worried about you going alone. Are you sure? Does your company really allow this? While it was reassuring to have his childhood friend Rui assist him, Rui was a rising star hailed as El Cid's hope. His company wouldn't let him go that easily. I've told you before, I want to save KT too. Both the company and Tenuchi-san readily agreed with my request. They even encouraged me, as it's for the sake of the world as well. Rui's decision touched Yuma. Even after he selfishly sought the white magic gem, people were still willing to join him. There might be just 3 of us, but this is the minimum number for a Seeker clan. I'm looking forward to working with you, Mitaka Yuma. Akito got up from the table and extended his hand for a handshake. Yuma accepted it, and Rui also approached, raising his right hand. Yuma accepted the high five. No one had expected that the people who had fought against him just days ago would now form a Seeker clan. Yuma knew he could rely on their strength and felt reassured about going to India with such reliable comrades. Chapter 201, Departure. Godspeed, everyone. The government will provide its full support to you. The schedule for your departure is 1 week later. Are you okay with that timeline? Akito couldn't stop smiling as he listened to Serizawa's explanation. Make it a bit faster. I'm already done with all my preparations. Rui nodded in agreement. Me too. If Yuma is ready, I'd prefer we depart as soon as possible. Yuma shared the same sentiment. His determination to save Kid grew stronger with each passing day. He told Serizawa that he was ready. Understood. We'll make the preparations immediately. For now, please use this time to contact your colleagues, family, and friends. As the meeting ended and Yuma and his group were about to leave the conference room, there was a knock at the door. Yuma turned to see who it was. When the door opened, several men in suits entered. Yuma tilted his head in confusion, but Serizawa immediately stood up. Is something the matter? Prime Minister Takakura? Yuma's face stiffened upon hearing the words Prime Minister. Though he knew a new Prime Minister had been appointed, seeing him on television was completely different from meeting him in person. Both Ruya and Akito appeared just as surprised. My apologies. I left another meeting because I wanted to meet Mitaka-kun no matter what. Takakura's gaze shifted to Yuma. His tall stature and commanding presence reflected a politician seasoned by the conspiracies of the political world. Yuma couldn't hide his nervousness. I'm Takakura, the Prime Minister. Thanks to you, the damage from the dragon's raid in Japan was minimized. On behalf of the citizens of Japan, I want to express my deepest gratitude. Thank you very much. Flustered, Yuma quickly motioned for the Prime Minister to stop bowing. No, it's not a big deal. I just did what I wanted to do. Takakura raised his head, acknowledging Yuma's words. But that doesn't change the fact that you endured such a painful experience, a blunder that could have destroyed Japan. This token may be insufficient, but we will do everything in our power to support your endeavors. Takakura signaled to an attendant, who stepped forward with an item. Takakura received it and presented it to Yuma. The reason I came today is to give you this. In his hands was a red gem displayed on a cloth. Yuma, Rui, and Akito all stared at it intently. This is the magic gem dropped by the Red King. According to researchers, it's unlike any magic gem they've ever seen. They call it Red Beryl. Red Beryl? Takakura nodded at Yuma's murmured question. Researchers used Elcid's latest mana measuring tool to analyze it. Its mana index is 30,000. 30,000? Akito exclaimed in shock. Ruya and Yuma were equally stunned. Such an enormous mana index was unheard of. Upon closer inspection, Yuma noticed faint ivy-like patterns etched on the gem's surface, similar to patterns he had seen on the magic gems of a giant slime and chimera. No one has been able to use this gem. Moreover, it belongs to you, the one who defeated the Red King. Please, make use of it as you see fit. Yuma thanked Takakura as he accepted the gem and then bid farewell to Serizawa before leaving the conference room with Ruya and Akito. As they walked toward the government car prepared for them, Akito spoke. Still, that's amazing. I mean, 30,000. Your body might explode if you eat that, you know. Ruya agreed with Akito's concern. Yuma held the red beryl up to the sunlight, marveling at its brilliant radiance. Well, I don't think it'll be a problem. Without hesitation, Yuma thrust the gem into his mouth. Ruya and Akito screamed in unison. Are you crazy, eating it like a candy mint? Are you okay, Yuma? Contrary to their panic, Yuma remained composed. Yeah, it's no problem. At that moment, Yuma felt like magma was surging in his stomach. Seeing him clutch his abdomen, Ruya and Akito turned pale. See? I told you. Spit it out. Quick, get a grip, Yuma. Yuma raised a hand to stop their frantic reactions. Don't worry, I'm fine. I'm used to this. It's already settling down. The duo was looking dumbfoundedly upon seeing Yuma's nonchalant demeanor. Anyway, let's talk about our next steps. Though still bewildered, Ruya and Akito followed Yuma's lead. They entered the government car prepared by Serizawa and left the Prime Minister's official residence. That evening, Yuma sat with his parents at the dining table. India. Why go that far? his mother asked with a concerned expression. Yuma didn't want to worry them by revealing his true mission, to revive Kt. Instead, he explained it as a government dispatch request. This is part of my job as a seeker. Many people abroad are requesting help from Japan. But as expected, his father opposed the idea. Yuma, there's no need for you to go, right? Japan is already chaotic enough, why go somewhere as far as India? Yuma understood his father's concern. No parent wanted to see their child face danger. However, he was resolute. Dad, I know this mission is dangerous, but it's something I have to do. I've told you about my transformation magic, right? People overseas need that power. But I'll come back, I promise. Please, let me go. Seeing their son bow deeply, his parents reluctantly gave their blessing. Takakura and Serizawa worked swiftly, preparing everything necessary for the trio's departure in just 3 days. On the day of departure, Yuma rode with Kanzaki to Haneda Airport in a government-provided car. The team accompanying you is already on their way, correct? Asked Maker, seated in the back. Everyone from D-Minor had come to see Yuma off. Yes, we'll regroup there. I'm glad you're not going alone. It's a relief to know good people will be with you. I agree. Ha. Though Yuma couldn't deny the truth of their words, he felt reassured knowing Akito and Rua would be by his side. Once at Haneda, they located the exclusive boarding gate for officials. Rua, Akito, and the government staff were already there. Geez, you're late, Yuma. Sorry, Rua. Yuma jogged lightly to join them. In reality, he was on time. Rua and Akito had simply arrived early. Upon closer inspection, he noticed Serizawa among the staff. Thank you very much for your various assistance, Serizawa-san. I just did what I have to do. However, in case something happens during your travel, please do contact us via the consulate or the government. We'll give you as much support as we can. Understood. Serizawa then took something out from the pocket of his business suit as Yuma replied. This is a little gift from the government. There are only a few of them, but I hope this will be useful. He presented a black case to them. Opening the lid, Serizawa revealed a few transparent, colorless gems. Yuma recognized them immediately. White magic gems, rock crystal and zircon. Together, their mana index is only around 1,200. My apologies, but this is the best we could prepare given the time before your departure. No, this is more than enough. Thank you very much. Yuma thanked Serizawa. Rua and Akito also bid their farewells. Just as they were about to enter the gate, someone called out from behind. Yuma-kun. When he turned around, he saw that it was Aisha. You came too, Aisha-san. He hadn't expected her to see him off. But since he had asked Aisha to take care of Kid's body, he was glad to meet her before departing Japan. She wore her usual white coat, but this time she carried a long white bag slung over her back. How is Kid, Aisha-san? Don't worry about her. I've asked an acquaintance to keep her body in cold storage. This is necessary to prevent her body from rotting. That's a relief. Although Yuma felt reassured, Aisha's face grew grim as she continued. It's still too early to feel relieved, Yuma-kun. Even cold storage can't completely prevent decay, it only delays the inevitable. You're right. Even if healing magic can revive the dead, we still don't know what will happen if her body deteriorates too much. Finish your task as soon as possible. Gather enough white magic gems before her body reaches the point of no return. Yes. Yuma replied firmly. He had no intention of wasting time. He would scour the world for as many white magic gems as possible and master the resurrection magic. He was fully prepared to risk his life to save Kt. In addition, Aisha unslung the bag from her back and revealed its contents. It was a transformable metal pole. The thing I promised back then. Promised? Yuma looked puzzled. I told you I'd prepare a better weapon for you, remember? Only then did Yuma recall Aisha's promise from their dive into the Black Dungeon. Aisha carefully unfolded the weapon, revealing its shaft and head. It transformed into a shape Yuma recognized. A variable pickle. It's crafted from adamantite mined from the dungeon. Its head can house 4 magic gems. Upon closer inspection, Yuma noticed red, green, yellow, and blue magic gems embedded in the head. You can unlock its true potential after mastering all 4 elemental magics. Yuma stared in awe at the pickle and the accompanying bag Aisha handed him. Thank you very much, Aisha-san. This is truly amazing. You can replace the magic gems in the pickle's head as you acquire stronger ones. This is all I can do for you. The rest is up to you. Yes. Yuma turned to face the group at the gate. Kanzaki, Maker, Tanaka, Serizawa, and even Aisha stood there, offering him words of encouragement. Take care of yourself, Yuma. Come back safely. Their warm support filled Yuma's heart. It was a joy he would never have experienced if he had led a normal life. Finally, Kanzaki spoke. Come back to D Minor after your overseas mission, Yuma. There's still a lot I need to teach you. Yuma felt a lump in his throat. Turning to Ruia and Akito, they both nodded at him. Yuma returned their nod and then faced the group again. See you again, everyone. With those words, Yuma, Akito, and Ruia stepped through the boarding gate, heading toward the private plane chartered by the government. Chapter 201.5, Mitaka Yuma Status, up to Chapter 200. Mana Index, 500,730. Magical Power of Black, 124,030. Magical Power of Water, 5,710. Magical Power of Fire, 30,000. Magical Power of Wind, Magical Power of Thunder, Magical Power of White, 1,280. Remaining colorless mana, 339,710. Chimera's 5 gems. 1 question mark? 2 Ancient Dragon, 3 Red Ogre, 4 Helgam, 5 Mamizu. Yuma can copy the ability and form of the creature he touches during metallization. Though the creature that he could mimic was limited in accordance with the order they touched, Yuma could intentionally maintain or erase the creature that he didn't need. However, the creature that forcibly overwritten his arrangement couldn't be erased. Enchanted Armament. Ever-changing pickle form. Magic equipment form. Emerald, 1020. Ruby, 1100. Sapphire, 1070. Amber, 1110. It was an extremely tough weapon made from adamantine allowing 4 magic gems. Since it was made under the assumption of being used with Yuma's liquid metal coating, part of the hilt can be lengthened, and the head part can be adjusted. Since Yuma hadn't learned thunder and wind magic yet, he couldn't use the 2 gems corresponding to those magics. Chapter 202. Along the way, Yuma and the others boarded the airplane, took their seats, and fastened their seat belts following the crew's instructions. From the look of it, they were going to depart immediately. Hey, this must be first class, right? I mean, the seat feels like a private room, and there's almost no shaking. This was Yuma's first experience riding an airplane, but he had to admit that the seat was comfortable, and there was no shaking. He was moved to tears upon hearing that this might be first class. No, this might be business class. I don't know if it's business or economy class since this is for government use. Seriously? Akito looked fairly dispirited hearing Rui's remark. Yuma and Seo sat in the front row, where 4 seats lined up next to each other, near the nose of the plane. Yuma sat in the second seat from the right, talking to Rui, who sat in the seat right next to him. Are we going straight to India? Nope, we will stop in Indonesia and head to India by ship. Indonesia? Why are we visiting that place? Hearing Yuma's question, Akito, who sat on the left, replied, the heck? It's clearly written in the document prepared by the government. Haven't you read it? Come to think of it, I haven't read it. Akito was dumbfounded hearing such a reply. Are you serious? What are you going to do if you go on your own? Aren't you likely to become a stray child even before arriving in India? Yuma couldn't say anything. That was most likely going to happen. A while later, an announcement resounded in the cabin, reminding Yuma and CO that the plane was about to take off. We're departing, huh? Kind of scary somehow. Though he had ridden JSDF's helicopters before, this was the first time Yuma rode an aeroplane. He was nervous. The crew who sat in front of them were also seated and had fastened their seat belts. The airplane then started moving and rapidly accelerating. Only when he felt his body slant did he realize that the airplane had already started ascending. He bit his lips, prepared for the worst, only to realize a while later that his worry was unnecessary. He had imagined that it would be a scary experience, only to realize that it was unnecessary worry. A while later, the trio unfastened their seatbelts after the crew said that it was safe to do so. Thereupon, a man came from the back seat. "Excuse me. I'm Kader from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I'm appointed to give everyone my support during this voyage. I'm looking forward to working with you." Seeing Kader bowing politely during his introduction, Yuma and CO bowed as well. There were a few officials appointed to accompany the trio on this government airplane. They were mainly from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Defense. Their main job was to act as guides, not as bodyguards. That was a natural decision since the trio was far stronger than the officials. "Can you please follow me to the conference room? I'm about to give you a briefing about the country we're going to visit, Indonesia." Conference room? Yuma frowned hearing Kader's remark. Though Yuma couldn't hide his shock since he never knew that the airplane even came with a conference room, he followed Kader. "This way." The moment Kader opened the door to the room, the trio was at a loss for words. Because that room was indeed the epitome of a conference room. It wasn't that big, but it was a classy room with 2 tables and 6 seats. Yuma and CO took the prepared seats, and Kader sat in front of them. "Let's get to the point. This is about our current destination." "What about our current destination?" Akito asked Kader with a puzzled face. Yuma also found it strange since their travel plan was unusually detailed. "Naturally, we'll keep our original plan. We will go to India after a transit in Indonesia." But the Indonesian government offered a white magic gem in exchange for exterminating monsters. "Seriously? How much is the total mana index of the magic gem?" Yuma asked excitedly without realizing that he was leaning forward. "Around 3,800 mana index. The content of the request is the capture of the White Dungeon." The 3 felt dizzy. That offer was a little heaven sent. "Yuma, we might be able to get a magic gem if it's the White Dungeon. This is killing 2 birds with 1 stone. We have to take this offer." Though Rua became really excited, Akito calmly rebuked him. "Wait a second, how do they include the depth of that White Dungeon?" Kader nodded gently. "The dungeon is composed of 48 floors. Since it's a medium-sized dungeon, I think it's within everyone's capability to capture it." Silence enveloped the meeting room as everyone compared the risks and rewards for this offer. A while later, Rua broke the silence. "The monsters of the White Dungeon are the strongest among the 6 types of dungeons. I think Indonesian seekers are also having a hard time coping with them." "Is that why they made a request to us?" Rua continued his monologue, nodding as if he grasped the situation. "They must have no problem dealing with other monsters. I mean, since the monsters of the White Dungeon are tougher and have higher combat abilities, even higher-rank seekers are having trouble dealing with them. That's why it's only natural for them to send a reinforcement request to Japan, which managed to drive away the Red King." Since that was the case, it was the local citizens who were suffering the most. Since Yuma and CO were in a hurry, they normally wouldn't accept the commission, but it was a different story if the reward was a white magic gem. "If I can get a white magic gem from India and Indonesia, the total amount of mana index from magic gems that I consume should be more than 20,000. In short, that amount would be enough to allow me to use healing magic up to 3rd level. Thus, it might be possible for me to heal." Both Ruya and Akito looked at Yuma's face. This journey was made due to Yuma's request. Thus, Yuma had the final say when it came to the matter of destination. Kader was also waiting for Yuma's decision. "I understand. Let's capture the White Dungeon of Indonesia." The government airplane arrived at Soekarno-Hatta International Airport. Yuma and Co., who had just descended from the ramp, closed their eyes due to the blazing sunlight that shone over them as soon as they came out of the airplane. Since it was still noon, and Yuma wanted to reach their destination before sunset, the Japanese staff that came with them, including Kader, started contacting various places. "The car that's going to pick us up is about to arrive. And take this." Kader handed something like white earphones to Yuma and Co., who were waiting in the airport lobby. "And this is Automatic Translation Machine, otherwise known as ATM. This will allow you to communicate with locals." Yuma looked at the earphone in his hands with keen interest. It looked the same as small wireless earphones. "It supports about 100 languages." "Wow!" Yuma and CO quickly attached the earphones to one of their ears and tested them. They ran on batteries, but they couldn't test their performance unless they spoke with a foreigner. Mitaka-san, we can't accompany you to the dungeon site since it's too dangerous for non-seekers like us. That's why we will be waiting for your safe return at the Japanese consulate. Make sure you contact us if something happens. I understand. Thank you for the support so far. Yuma and Rua thanked Kada and boarded the limousine that came to pick them up. They saw the Japanese staff seeing them off from the car windows. Their destination was the city where the White Dungeon was located, Mojokoto. I'm all fired up. Akito was all fired up, even Rua nodded in agreement. Yuma was also pumped up. The battle to gather the white magic gem to save Kid was about to begin. Chapter 203, Fire Magic. Yuma and Seo entered Mojokoto by car. Since they heard it was a city, the first thing they imagined was a place with a lot of buildings, yet it turned out to be a town with a green landscape. The atmosphere was similar to that of rural areas in Japan. After leaving the residential area, they arrived at a splendid building that stood out in stark contrast to the others around it. It was the government building. The car passed the metal gate and stopped right in front of the entrance. A woman, followed by some staff, approached before the trio came down from the limousine. Welcome. I'm the governor of East Java Province, Diane Myra. Ah, thanks. Yuma replied to the greeting politely. The woman, Diane, was in her 50s and wore a white hijab on her head. Though he was quite surprised to be welcomed by such a high-ranking official, that was only the beginning. Awesome. It really translates with this earphone. And it translates almost without any time lag. Yuma and Akito marveled at the performance of the earphones. Since Diane wore the same kind of earphones, there was no problem with their communication. Diane just looked amused to see Yuma and Akito react. You must be exhausted after the long travel, right? We've prepared a room for each of you. Please get some rest for the time being. Thank you very much. Yuma said, grateful for the generous welcome, before they rode into the limousine again, which took them to their hotel. The details of the situation would be explained there. Akito was really delighted knowing they could rest in the hotel room. Since Yuma was also exhausted from the long journey, he was truly grateful for the hotel room. But thanks to that, his desire to conquer the dungeon was even stronger than before. The hotel prepared by the government was more luxurious than they had expected. The modern exterior was a stark contrast to the scenery outside. According to the information, it seemed to be a 3-star hotel. After Yuma and Seo entered their room, they sat on the lounge sofa. A male staff member from the government sat across from them. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Henry, the one who will act as your support during this mission. Nice to meet you too. Yuma replied nervously. The other party also used the same earphone, so communication between the two parties was possible. Firstly, thank you very much for taking the time to come to our country. Everyone from the government can't thank you enough for this. The official, Henry, was a man in his late 20s and seemed to be bright and cheerful. He had healthy, tanned skin and a round face. His white teeth, which seemed to shine when he smiled, left a deep impression on Yuma. Even if we are the only foreign aide who has come, Rui, who sat beside Yuma, asked Henry that question. Of course. Right now, all countries around the world are busy trying to protect themselves. They have no leeway to dispatch their seekers to assist foreign countries. Rui nodded in agreement upon hearing that answer. Henry then looked around and leaned forward as he spoke in a low voice. By the way, is that rumor true? Rumor? What rumor? Henry looked dumbfounded when Yuma asked back with a puzzled face. Then the former spoke again. The rumor about Japan repelling the Red King. I heard that Japan is the only country in the world that managed to pull it off. Only then did Yuma understand what Henry meant. In fact, it wasn't repelled, it was subjugated. And none of the foreign countries had been informed about this. Yeah, somehow. As I thought. Man, it's really reassuring to know that seekers from such an amazing country are coming to assist us. Henry's face broke into a delighted smile. Although Yuma and Seo were only helping because they wanted the magic gem, seeing the other party's welcoming attitude made them happy too. We want to capture the dungeon as soon as possible. Can you lead us to the dungeon immediately? Henry shook his head upon hearing Yuma's request. No, we actually already made a plan to capture the White Dungeon, which includes your participation in it. Naturally, We won't let you dive into the White Dungeon alone. When will that plan commence? Part 2. Rue asked this time. 3 days later. A lot of seekers from Indonesia will join us on that date. 3 days later. Yauma pondered while touching his mouth. Though he wanted to capture the dungeon as soon as possible, he couldn't do so without the government's approval. Since it couldn't be helped, Yauma had no choice but to agree to join the capture plan 3 days later. After expressing their gratitude and parting with Hendry, Yauma and Co headed toward their room. Though the room was luxurious, Akito was dissatisfied with the fact that it was a shared room. The heck? Why isn't it a private room? So petty. It's no big deal, alright. It's already good enough that they prepared such a nice room for us. Rue chided with a wry smile. 2 days are too long, murmured Yauma, who sprawled on the bed, in dissatisfaction. Ruya and Akito exchanged glances. The duo knew that Yauma's main goal was to gather as many white magic gems as possible in the shortest time, but since this was an unavoidable situation, they couldn't do anything but to wait. Can't be helped, Yauma. Let's just do the things we can do for the next 2 days. The things we can do? Yauma frowned at Akito's remarks. You have a lot to do. Firstly, you haven't mastered fire magic, right? It's not like you can immediately use magic with a flip of your hand after absorbing the magic gem. Almost forgot about that. Only then did he remember that he hadn't tried to use fire magic ever since he ingested the magic gem of the Red King. He hadn't even tried his enchanted armament, Variable Pickle, yet. Both are things that should be tried before entering the dungeon. To use powerful magic, control is everything. Ask Rue if you want to know about fire magic. That's right. I'll teach you. Rue brought a bucket from the bathroom and placed it on top of the low table. The bucket was filled with water as a precaution against fire. Well then, Yauma, place your hand on top of this bucket. Oh okay. Yauma sat in front of the low table, raising his index finger above the bucket. Focus your mind and try to create a small fireball on top of your fingertip. Okay. Yauma focused his mind. This was the same as when he was training to use water magic. If he could control it without a hitch, it meant that there was no problem using it in real combat. Yauma closed his eyes, concentrating on his fingertip. Suddenly, he felt the room become brighter. He had a hard time when he tried to use water magic, yet he could do it quite easily this time. The moment Yauma opened his eyes, he saw an unbelievable sight. His hand was on fire, or rather covered by a pillar of fire. The trio shouted in panic. Chapter 204, Flame Armor. Chapter 204, Flame Armor. Rue quickly poured the water in the bucket on Yauma's hand, but the fire only got bigger instead. Even though the flame in Yauma's right hand had been put off, the sparks caused the bed and the floor to set ablaze. Akito put off the fire on the bed with a pillow, and Rue stepped on the fire on the carpet. Yauma used water magic with his left hand while waving his scalding right hand. The basketball-sized water polo flew and extinguished the flame. After they managed to extinguish the flame in 3 minutes, the trio was left dumbfounded in their room. They had never expected that they would cause a small fire in their lodging room on the first day they arrived in Indonesia. Akito then spoke first. Are you trying to grill us alive? You're weight and unskilled. Sorry. Akito was snapping angrily at Yauma. There, it's actually my fault to tell him to try in our room. Let's go outside. Yauma, let's clean this room and try again outside of the hotel. Why yes. After that, the trio tidied up their room. Akito helped too, albeit reluctantly. They went to apologize to the staff for setting fire in the room and somehow being forgiven. Though the staff said that the repair bill would be sent to the government, Yauma felt sorry upon recalling Hendry's face. I'm going to hit the bed, said Akito as he lying on his bed. Thus Yauma and Rue left for the courtyard of the hotel. I think this place is pretty safe and there's no need to worry about fire. Now try to use fire magic again. Why yes. Yauma nodded to Rue, raised his right index finger, and propped his right hand with his left hand. He focused on creating the image of fire. Thus he felt the rising heat around the tip of his index finger. The fire ignited with a sudden popping sound. This time both his hands were burned. Yauma, are you okay? The Dew quickly tried to extinguish the fire, Rua hit it with his hands while Yuma used water magic. That was bad for my mental health, said Yuma while plopping on the ground along with Rua. As expected, if the magic gem of the Red King is too powerful, is it really impossible to use it? That might not be the case. Maybe I simply need to get used to fire magic first. Yuma stroked his scalding right hand. There was a faint glow when he focused his consciousness on his left hand. He tried to use the healing magic that he learned to heal his right hand bit by bit. You can use healing magic. Or should I say fire magic, water magic, and healing magic. Now I'm not sure if you're actually clumsy or skilled, said Rua with a wry smile. Surely I can use healing magic without a hitch, yet how did I'm so clumsy at using fire magic? There must be a reason for this. This might have something to do with affinity. Affinity? Yuma frowned upon hearing Rua's remark. They say Seeker has their own affinities in magic. Even if you're not good with fire magic, you might be skilled with water magic or wind magic. Is that something that can be understood immediately? Nope. To begin with, it's rare for Seekers to use more than one attribute, so they rarely put importance in affinity. Depending on your job, you might be assigned specific magic to learn. Yuma recalled hearing that before. He recalled some times ago that big companies prioritizing fire or thunder magic, while small and medium companies prioritizing water or wind magic. Sometimes they couldn't even get to choose which magic to learn. That aside, let's check the performance of your weapon. Ah, you're right. Yuma grabbed his bag and took out his variable pickle. Okay, let's try it. When Yuma readied his pickle, Rua left after saying, wait a minute, I'll be back in a while. A while later, Rua returned with a bucket filled with water. As if preparing for an unexpected incident, Rua placed the bucket by his side and told Yuma to continue. Okay. Here goes nothing. Yuma focused his attention on the pickle head. This time, his hands wouldn't catch fire. Even if the tip of the pickle were to ignite, it wouldn't be a problem. He poured his magical power at once. Rua looked at his childhood friend with a look full of concern. The next moment, black smoke rose from Yuma's head along with a puff. Rua waited for a while. Eh? Is that all? Yuma was confused. He expected his head to set ablaze, yet only smoke puffing from his head. Rua was also looking disappointed. It seems to be too difficult. In that case, he looked at Yuma as an idea flashed in his mind. How about using it in your metallization state? You might be able to use it easily in your metal armor form. Let's try that. Yuma looked around for a while, confirming that no one was nearby or coming toward the courtyard they used right now. Is this place too conscious? Asked Rua. Yes. But I think there's no problem if it's just metallization. Yuma clenched his fist, and transformed his body into metal. His skin color gradually turned into metallic black until all his hair. You can transform into metal form while maintaining a human appearance. That's rad. This way no one going to mistake me for a monster even if someone saw me from afar. Well, I don't think it'll be a problem either even if this is seen from close up. Yuma took his pickle, then let his liquid metal to wrap its shaft and head part. The pickle tart covered in jet black steel gradually transformed into a giant hammer. Now let's add fire magic. He focused on pouring his magical power into the hammer. Thereupon, glowing red lines appeared from his right hand, and spread until the hammer. Steam rises from the heated steel. No doubt about it. The experiment was a success. Getting hit with it would hurt for sure. Yeah, absolutely. It seems you have yet to reach the level of being able to use fire at your will, but this is enough for battle. Rua felt relieved to be able to use fire magic on a practical level. Otherwise, the Red King's magic gem would be wasted. Yuma was elated. Then he tried something else. Oh, right. What do you think gonna happen if I pour fire magic on my entire body? It will make me stronger in fire magic and water magic. The high-spirited Yuma then let magical power of fire to flow on his entire body. Glowing red bloodlines that looked like blood appeared on his body. Though he was happy that it looked like flame armor. My clothes? My clothes. His clothes were set ablaze. Rua quickly grabbed the bucket on his feet. But the flame didn't go out and kept burning Yuma's clothes. He didn't feel the heat thanks to his fire resistance. But Yuma couldn't handle this unexpected situation and ended up couldn't think of anything. 5 minutes later, Rua was looking at the naked Yuma with an expression full of pity. In the end, Rui lent his overcoat to Yuma and the latter returned to the room in commando. Chapter 205, Religion of Different Clan. 2 days later, Hendry picked up Yuma and Co from their hotel by limousine. The trio that had already finished their preparation got into the limousine immediately. The Indonesia's Seeker clan had already gathered on site. "I'll introduce you to them as soon as we arrive." Hendry spoke to them from the passenger seat. "The White Dungeon is in the soccer field, right?" "That's right." Hendry replied to Rui's question. "A giant hole suddenly appeared in the field during the match round 6 years ago. It caused a huge commotion and the government organization mobilized immediately. Then the White Dungeon became an important source of income for the province, and then became the biggest headache when the monster started coming out of the dungeon." "Unfortunately that's the case," Hendry replied with a wry smile at Rui's comment. "The monsters coming out are too strong. Even though it's not a deep dungeon, the ones coming up have toughness close to that of monster from deep floor, making it difficult to defeat them." Hendry heaved a sigh. The dungeon turned out to be a huge headache. This reminds Yuma again that monster from the deep floor has powerful resistance ability. Not to mention that the monsters of the White Dungeon had recovery ability even when they were monsters from shallow floors. Being hailed as the toughest among 6 types of dungeons was by no mean an exaggeration. They're heading out to conquer the dungeon now. Thus, they need to prepare themselves for the tough battle ahead of them. The car arrived at their destination, the soccer field. While Yuma was pondering about that, there was no dome to cover the dungeon like the one in Japan. It just surrounded by a barricade that prohibits entry. That's why the monster was free to roam in the city as soon as they left the dungeon. It was truly dangerous situation. The military personnel guarding the entrance then opened the iron railing so that their car can enter. When the limousine entered the soccer field, many people had already gathered. They were Indonesia's Seekers. Hendry and the trio heading toward the group after they came out from the car. An armed man standing in front of them. He seems to be the clan leader. "Let me introduce you, everyone. He is Rahmid, the Seeker who represents Indonesia." Yuma stepped forward and did a handshake with Rahmid. The other party was around 190 centimeters tall. He was tall and had muscular, tanned skin. He put on a hat called PC that is usually used by Muslims when they're praying, and there was an ornamental sword strapped on his waist. That sword was his enchanted armament. "I've heard about you guys. Welcome to Indonesia, and thank you very much for willing to come to help us." "No, we're actually the ones who feel indebted here," Yuma replied to Rahmid. But since Rahmid didn't have the earphones, Hendry interpreted Yuma's words to Rahmid. "And there's another person I want to introduce to everyone." They headed to another group upon being urged by Hendry. Yuma was startled. In that place was a woman talking to another group of Seekers. The woman was tall and slim. Her beautiful, wavy black hair was quite conspicuous. Her healthy, tanned skin was wrapped in an ethnic battle suit different from the one from Japan. Since the suit had a lot of exposure, Yuma had trouble looking at her, and she was simply a charming beauty. "This one over here is the leader Mahakala, a large-scale clan of Indonesia. Her name is Zamara." "And nice to meet you." Yuma offered a handshake while scratching his head. But Zamara had only looked at him with a cold gaze. "So you're the Seeker who came from Japan?" Yuma dropped his right hand slowly. It seems they were not welcomed by her. "The problem in Indonesia will be resolved by the Indonesian people. My apologies for having to say this after you came to this place, but we don't need your help. Go back." Zamara turned around and left after she said those words. Hendry could only be smiling apologetically at Yuma after seeing her attitude. "My apologies. She came from a different religion than Rahmid. She might sound like a little bit exclusivist, but she's not a bad person inside. Please forgive her blatant attitude." "Different religion?" "Yes. The clan in this country is made based on religion. Each has its own principle and combat style." "I see now." Once again, it was a culture shock for Yuma. The reason was that the Seeker in Japan wasn't bound by their religion. This is a national characteristic. Yuma watched Zamara's back as she left with mixed feelings in his heart. After all Seekers who participated in the White Dungeon's capture had arrived, everyone standing in front of the said dungeon's entrance, which was left in the open. The Kujata clan led by Rahmid was composed of 30 people, composed of mostly men. The Mahakala clan led by Zamara on the other hand was mostly composed of women. Yuma and Co standing in line behind the two clans, waiting for the time to enter. Yuma, are you really going to fight using metallization? You might be attacked by the Seekers for being mistaken as a monster, you know. Yuma shook his head when Akito asked him. I won't be stingy. I'll capture the dungeon as fast as possible and depart to India. I'm going all out. Are you going to transform to black armor? Honestly, that appearance is ominous. No, I won't turn into black armor. The color of my body will simply change its color with metallization and won't be that noticeable. I've told Hendrai-san that my skin color will change due to the effect of special magic ore. And he explained this matter to Rahmid-san and Co to prevent confusion. Is that so? Well, if that's the case, it's fine. But can you still use your power properly? Though not as strong as when I'm in black armor form due to the difference in mass, it's plenty enough to defeat a monster. Rue also helped me with training for fire magic, so there's no need to worry. Yuma sends a sidelong glance at Rue. He could use fire magic in metallization state. And according to Rue, it was plenty good enough. Well, since Rue gave his stamp of approval, there's no problem, I guess, said Akito while scratching his head. To begin with, the reason he voiced his worry was that Yuma's transformation might cause some sort of trouble later, and this matter had yet to be confirmed at this stage. Nevertheless, they couldn't waste their time in this country either. They had to gather the magic gem as fast as they could for Kid, who had been waiting for them. Yuma wouldn't hesitate to use his power for her. Once Rahmid and other government officials gave their speech, the Seekers started to enter into the big hole. Yuma and the other who walked in the rear formation had also followed the fashion. Yuma looked to his right as he walked. After some training, he could include his clothes during metallization and create metal replacements for them. From afar, he only looks like someone wearing a metallic-colored battle suit. Yuma can go all out as long as he maintains his human appearance. He clenched his fist with renewed determination. Okay. Let's go. Yuma lowered his pickle and then entered the dungeon along with Ruya and Akito. Chapter 206, Low-Rank Errand Boy. More than 50 Seekers entered the Great Hole. The center of the dungeon, as seen by Yuma, was different from the one he had seen until now. It was a man-made structure made with white brick. The group formed a long line as they walked along the passage. Shortly afterward, they arrived at a spacious hall. It was a dome-shaped hall. Since it was still the first floor, the monsters here were no match for Yuma and the others, but the others were obviously nervous. There was something at the center of the dome. Yuma and his companions pushed their way through the people in front of them. When they arrived at the front, they saw a white humanoid monster. It was around 170 centimeters tall, with no face or hair, just like a mannequin. What is that? When Yuma muttered this, Akito, who was standing behind him, replied, isn't that an angel? Angel? Yuma had no idea what Akito was talking about for a moment since he had never heard of such a monster before. Akito, seeing through Yuma's confusion, shook his head and said, angels are rare monsters that appear in the White Dungeon on rare occasions. I heard that even those who appear on the shallow floors are quite strong. I don't know the details, but wouldn't your average Seeker have a hard time against them? Does that mean that one is quite strong too? Well, regardless of what you say, that one seems like the angel that came from the lowest floor. Let's see how Indonesian Seekers fight against them for the time being, Akito said as he stabbed the floor with the gei bulg he was holding and folded his arms, watching the proceedings unfold. Ruid did the same. Though Yuma was in a hurry, he knew that Akito was right this time. They should see how Rahmid and company handled this enemy first. Rahmid unsheathed his sword. It was an enchanted armament modeled after Indonesia's holy sword, Keris. He loaded his magical power into the sword, enveloping it with flames. Rahmid moved swiftly and brandished his sword. The horizontal slash cleaved the angel's torso in two, dividing the white body. Turning around, Rahmid shouted loudly, now! Keep them under pressure. The members of his Seeker clan attacked at once. The moment it seemed the battle was over, weapons imbued with wind, fire, and thunder pierced through the angel's body, causing it to swell up suddenly. Damn it! The magical power isn't enough. Rahmid bit his lip in frustration. The two swollen bodies rapidly shrank and transformed into humanoid shapes. The one angel then split into two. Yuma and company were dumbfounded. This was the first time they had seen a low-rank angel multiply. "You must be kidding me." Akito looked at the spectacle with a disbelieving face. While the three were still in shock, the bodies that had been cut down by the Seekers once again began to swell. This time, the number of their enemies increased to 4. The angels stood there as if nothing had happened. Zamara's Seeker clan had also joined in, with dozens of people attacking, but the angels skillfully dodged their attacks. Zamara's thunderclad slash cleaved the angel. However, the angel's severed body swelled up and transformed into a different angel. Now the number of angels increased to 5. "If we can't defeat them with a single blow, they'll keep splitting and multiplying forever. We should join in the fight too." Rui touched the hilt of his sword. Akito also grabbed the shaft of his spear. However, the movements of the two suddenly came to a halt. A terrifying wave of heat was emanating from behind them. When they turned around, they were at a loss for words. Glowing red veins appeared on Yuma's black, metallic body. The weapon in his hand transformed from a pickaxe to a hammer. White steam was released from Yuma's skin, and the ground under his feet turned into magma. Since it was too dangerous to approach the current Yuma, both Ruia and Akito took a step back to a safe distance. "I'll go. We can't afford to waste our time on the first floor." "Be careful, Yuma. Even if they're low rank, angels are formidable opponents." "Got it." Yuma replied to Rui as he shouldered the shaft of his hammer. The surface of his metal-coated hammer had glowing, magma-like veins. Yuma stamped on the ground, closing in at once toward the angels. Rahmid loaded all his magical power into his sword. Before him was a low-rank angel living in the White Dungeon Principality. Properly speaking, they were supposed to be monsters living in the deep floors. Rahmid was surprised to find one on such a shallow floor, but there was no turning back now. It was only a matter of time before more and more angels climbed out to the surface. They had to defeat it now. Thus, Rahmid readied his flame-clad sword and stabbed the chest of the angel. The flame spread around the angel, turning into a vortex of fire. The body of the angel was torn apart before turning into ashes. "Damn it. I've used a lot of magical power just to defeat one of them." There were 4 angels left. He spent too much magical power just to defeat one. Rahmid turned around to see the other Seeker's situation. Zamara seemed to be able to handle the situation on her own, but the same couldn't be said for the others. Half-hearted attacks would only increase the number of the angels. When Rahmid raised his sword to join the battle again, a spectacle at the edge of his field of vision caught his attention. The body that was burning brightly, holding a giant hammer, running toward him. Rahmid almost mistook it for a monster before realizing that he was wrong at the last minute. Upon a closer look, he realized that the other party was a human. The red lines on that person's black body were glowing brightly like magma. That should be one of the Seekers from Japan. The man with glowing red lines on his body then jumped off. He raised his hammer, aiming at the angel below him. The head of the angel exploded with a single downward blow from him that came at terrifying speed. The angel's upper half exploded and was gone. Rahmid almost doubted his eyes. The lower body of the angel started to burn from the wound and then crumbled into ashes without recovering again, ever. The man then raised his hammer, turning to another angel as if he had nothing to do. "Is that explosion magic? What in the hell is that guy?" Chapter 207, Abnormal Power. Zamara's long, beautiful hair fluttered in the air as she swung her sword clad in lightning. She slashed the angel's chest and retreated immediately. She exhaled a breath and readied her stance again. Zamara was flustered. The angel that should only come out in the deeper floor suddenly appeared in the shallow floor, meaning that the angel is climbing up from the deep floor. Few angels had already descended on the ground. They couldn't just let them be, as even a single angel could create a catastrophe. Zamara loaded her magical power into the keris in her right hand. When she raised up the sword with an undulating blade, she heard a commotion from behind. Sensing that something happened behind her, she took a glance and saw a man that she had never seen before standing there. The man was holding a giant hammer, clad in a black battlesuit with glowing red lines on it. The hammer easily mowed down the angel, and the moment it touched the angel's body swelled up before exploding into countless pieces. The scattered pieces then turned into black sands, an indication that it had been killed. The man twirled his hammer and hit the angel that fast approaching from the right. The second angel had also exploded to pieces in one hit, scattering countless black sands on the ground. Zamara and the other seekers couldn't hide their shock from seeing such an unbelievable spectacle. Now there was only one angel left. The angel before Zamara. The man closed into the angel at once, passing by Zamara's side. Upon a closer look, Zamara realized that the man had pitch-black skin, with glowing red veins on his body. He didn't seem like a human. He looks more like a demonic. The man passed Zamara, who was routed on the spot, and brandished his giant hammer toward the angel. The angel exploded to pieces as soon as it got hit by the giant hammer. It turned into countless sparks and black ashes. What in the world is that? Zamara stared at the man. The glowing red line on his body vanished. All that remained was a black body. Maybe because there was nothing else to do, the man dropped his hammer on the ground. As he looked at the ashes of the angel dropped on the ground. Oi! You! The member of Kujata clan led by Rahmad came toward her. You're awesome. I've no idea that you're that powerful. Rahmad struck the man's shoulder in delight. The other members of Kujata had also raised a cheer celebrating the defeat of the angel. But the same couldn't be said for Zamara. She was wondering if that abnormal power came from magic. There were too many questions jumbled around in her head revolving around that black man. Ha 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 ha, when I heard that Japan had repelled the Red King, I thought it was a hoax, but after seeing your strength, I guess I can only believe it now. Rahmad smiled happily. He held Yuma's shoulder, walking together to the entrance to the second floor. Can I ask the three of you to lead the way from this point? Yuma sent a sidelong glance at Akito and Rua, who walked behind him. Rua nodded happily, and Akito gave him a thumbs up. Sure. That'll be for the better. Best regards then. Yes. Thus, Yuma and Ko led the group after they entered the second floor. Though there were 6 principality, low-rank angels, heading toward them, none of them were flustered. Rua unsheathed his blazing katana and brandished his sword at the angel with flowing movement. The cross-section where he slashed exploded, instantly killing the angel. And the angel who got stabbed by Akito's Geibog clad in black lightning was blown to pieces. That scene was impactful enough to surprise Rahmad and the other Indonesian seekers. However, what astonished them even more was Yuma's fighting style. He was running at breakneck speed across the ground while swinging his giant hammer. The angel who touched his hammer, without exception, exploded into tiny pieces. As if his running speed wasn't fast enough, he raised his speed to another level, causing the rest of the angel couldn't do anything but chase after him. Even a light touch from the hammer was enough to blast the upper body of the angel into countless pieces. Even when the angel backpedaled to open some distance, Yuma threw his hammer, which hit the angel, and blasted it into tiny fragments. The blasted angel didn't recover. The rest of their body burned away, turned into black ashes. Yuma pulled the chain made with liquid metal that connected to his hammer, which returned the hammer in his hand. Mazia Allah, Kuatsakli, Mungkin kita bisa sampai lantai terdalam hari ini juga dengan bantuan mereka bertiga. TL, oh my god, too strong. We might be able to reach the deepest floor today with their help. It just as Rahmad had said. The pace of dungeon capture rose at unprecedented speed after the trio took the lead. Yuma and Seo easily defeated all the monsters of the White Dungeon in one hit, including the angel. Since both Ruya and Akito fought ancient dragons before, their mana index already went above 8,000. Your average monster was no match for them anymore. Thanks to the trio, the Indonesian seeker didn't get the chance to fight at all. It took no time for the group to arrive on the 20th floor. And then, so this is the 20th floor, and the atmosphere seems to be different from normal. Yuma nodded in agreement with Rui. Yeah, it seems to be beautiful. Beneath the vast dome-shaped ceiling was concrete building, but its wall and building was sparkling brightly. The particles of light in the air gathered together, formed a form. That's, oh no. Tense air ran in the air along with Rahmad's shout. Yuma and Seo, who had no idea what happened, couldn't see anything but particles of light. The light transformed into a human shape. and gradually turned into a winged angel. It's mid-rank angel, Dominion. 3 angels appeared. One of those angels fluttered their wings and descended at once. Their target was the Indonesian Seeker clan. Thanks to their wings, their speed surpassed low-rank angel. The angel conjured a light dagger, and stabbed a male seeker. The wound was not that big, but that was enough to make the man stagger back, and faint. The wound gradually swelled up and turned into a giant lump. The man falls back, already turned into the recognizable form. He couldn't be saved anymore. What the heck is that? Akito frowned upon seeing such an atrocious attack. Rahid came to Akito's side while dispersing his comrade. Don't touch that sword of light. That is magic that reinforces life force to the extreme. Any living creature that touched it will die due to overflowing life force. Heck. I've never heard about this before. Akito raised his vigilance against the angel while readying his spear. At that moment, the angel above swooped down from above. Their target was Yuma. Yuma, don't touch those angel sword. It's dangerous. Akito raised his voice to warn Yuma, but Yuma didn't move an inch from his position. The angel's light dagger pierced through Yuma's chest. Rui's voice overlapped with Akito's. Rahid and the Indonesian Seeker were also at a loss for words, seeing that Yuma was unscathed. Everyone falls into silence, unable to understand the strange phenomenon before them. Thereupon, Yuma grabbed the angel's right hand with his left hand. The Dominion tried to pull their arm, yet was unable to free themselves from Yuma's grip. When smoke billowed from the angel's arm, the white monster started to struggle in desperation. Yuma poured magical power of fire into the angel's body. The angel's white body slowly swelled up as it turned into a vermilion color. When they swelled up twice their original size, it released dazzling light and exploded into tiny particles. Chapter 208. Bottom floor of the White Dungeon. The other 2 Dominions flew near the ceiling. Then coming at Yuma with a pincer attack from his side with light daggers in their hands. Yuma didn't get flustered by that. He raised his hammer as he injected magical power of fire into it. The moment the Dominions unleashed their attack, Yuma's figure vanished from the spot. The angels looked around in confusion. The same goes for Akito and Rui. Where did he go? Akito suddenly raised his face and saw Yuma raising his hammer high in the air. He swung down his hammer at the back of the Dominion before his opponent noticed his presence. The hammer hit the back of the Dominion along with a brilliant explosion. The angel was killed in one hit. Yuma's figure then fell into the billowing smoke. The remaining Dominion raised a scream akin to an ultrasonic wave. It created a few great swords of light in midair. The swords then fired at Yuma at breakneck speed. Yuma used his hammer to knock down the incoming swords. The Dominion became wary of Yuma and maintained their altitude in the air, refusing to come down. Seeing that, Yuma took back the liquid metal that was covering his hammer. The pickaxe regained its original form as the gray liquid metal returned to Yuma. He turned the head, extending the shaft with its head facing upward. And when he covered his pickaxe with liquid metal again, it turned into a spear. Yuma held the spear, aiming the tip at the angel, ready to throw it. When infused with fire magic, the entire spear glowed a bright red. Yuma poured all his strength into it and hurled the spear. The flame spear drew a trail of fire as it flew through the air and hit the Dominion. The Dominion stopped moving right after the spear pierced its chest. Yuma didn't forget to use the liquid metal to create a chain that was connected to the butt of the spear to pull it back. He then loaded his magical power of fire into the chain. Blast! The angel's body swelled up rapidly, turned red, and then exploded like fireworks. In the aftermath, only drifting embers and gray smoke remained. Watching the spreading smoke, Akito furrowed his brow. And he has yet to go all out. That power is cheating. Yuma pulled the chain, bringing the spear back to his hand. He released the fire magic flowing through his body and walked towards Ruia and Akito. Thanks for the hard work, Yuma. Aren't you already getting used to fire magic? Hearing Ruia and Akito's remark, Yuma just shook his head. Not at all I did was circulate magical power to my body and weapon. Fine control is still impossible for the current me. I see. Well, being able to kill the enemy with overwhelming firepower is good enough, Akito said with his usual nonchalance. For the 2 of them, it seemed to be a familiar fighting style. but the same couldn't be said for the other seekers. They were looking dumbfoundedly at Yuma from the entrance of the floor. "Oh oi, are you okay? Any injury?" "No problem," said Yuma when Rahmid asked such a question, leaving the latter in disbelief. "Is something the matter?" Only after hearing Yuma's question did Rahmid snap out of his daze. "Sorry, I was just left in awe since I've never heard of someone single-handedly defeating a Dominion," said Rahmid while laughing merrily. And despite nodding with Rahmid, deep down, Yuma didn't quite agree with him. "Let's capture the dungeon before the end of the day, Rahmid-san. I'll do my best too." "Why yeah, sure." The party delved deeper into the dungeon, encountering various enemies. On the 30th floor, a white bull with prominent horns charged at them. It was about the size of a 2-ton truck, causing the ground to shake. However, Yuma charged straight at it. He brandished his hammer to the side, nailing it at the side of the bull's abdomen. A massive explosion erupted, obliterating the monster's body. The remaining half, now missing its upper torso, crumbled into ashes. Ruia and Akito didn't want to be left behind either. Whether they were lower rank or mid-rank angels, all were defeated by flaming slashes and black lightning spears. Not even the monsters of the White Dungeon, with regeneration comparable to the monsters from the deep floor, were a match for them. Though Indonesian seekers, including Rahmid, had also participated in the battle, they didn't get their turn and could only watch the trios fight. 16 hours had elapsed since they dived into the dungeon, and they finally arrived. Finally, the bottom floor. They entered a dome-shaped building as soon as they left the staircase. Just like before, the building was made of concrete. Everything from the floor, walls, and ceiling was crystal clear. The inside of the dome was empty. Thus everyone was looking around curiously. "That's strange. There should be a monster waiting at the bottom of the dungeon, and yet." Ruin nodded in agreement with Yuma. "Since there was no staircase to the next floor, this is definitely the bottom floor. Be careful. They might be hiding." "Well, I'm gonna kill them when they appear." Akito spoke as carefreely as before while tapping the shaft of Gaebulg on his shoulder. Since Indonesian seekers have never come to the bottom floor before, they seemed rather bewildered, seeing that there was no monster in the bottom floor. "I'm sure that there must be something." Yuma didn't let his guard down and looked around vigilantly. A while later, he felt mysterious pressure coming from above. When he raised his face, he saw a grain-sized particle of light fluttering in the air. Something similar happened on the shallow floor. Countless particles of light clumped together just like the Dominion made their appearance. The lump of light then started to take a form. Rahmid suddenly shouted while closing his eyes due to the dazzling light. "Don't tell me, you know about it?" asked Yuma upon hearing Rahmid's exclamation. The latter said with a stiff face. "Never seen it, but I read about this monster in the report before. That monster should be." When the brilliance settled down, the form of the lump of light was finally visible. It resembled a giant halo or a tire of light, with countless eyes on its surface. They were looking at the seekers as they rotated slowly. "No doubt about it. That's a throne, high-rank angel." Yuma's eyes opened wide in shock since that was the most unangel-like appearance. The tire shook, then dropped at breakneck speed. Right below it were the Indonesian seekers. Unable to react in time, dozens of people were killed at once. "Damn it. They're no match for IT." When Akito unleashed black lightning, the throne escaped to the air again. Yuma transformed his hammer into a spear again, ready to hurl it like before. Thus, the attack that killed Dominion in one hit was unleashed again. The flame spear hurled toward the throne. When the spear was about to pierce the angel, something invisible repelled it. Yuma pulled the chain connecting the spear, returning the spear to his hand. He glared at the angel floating in the sky. "I guess a normal method won't work against it." Chapter 209. Barrier of Light. The halo descended from the sky again. The seekers below tried to get away as fast as they could. But the halo dropped on the ground, and then spun around, killing everyone along the way. Rahmid, Zamara, and the seekers who managed to get away fired their magic immediately. Fire, thunder, water, even wind magic. All kinds of magic were unleashed toward the halo, yet it was repelled by some kind of barrier before reaching the main body. "What in the hell is that?" Zamara shouted with a desperate face. Rahmid readied his sword and said, "It might be the barrier of light, which is said to be the strongest kind of barrier among the other attributes. Can we even pierce through that barrier of light? Rahmid shook his head upon hearing Zamara's question. It's said that the barrier of light weakens the power of all offensive magic and repels physical attacks. Destroying it is close to impossible with our strength alone. Hearing that, the other seekers, starting with Zamara, made despairing faces. When they were pondering about what to do, the halo spun again and headed toward another direction. Everyone did their best to stop the halo but failed. Amidst the despair, a black lightning made a beeline for the halo. Hold your horses. Your opponent is us. Akita rushed toward the halo. The halo then changed direction while spinning quickly on the ground. Rui got it. The duo closed in and stabbed at the halo. The flame slash and the black lightning intersected right before the halo. A massive explosion erupted, along with surging black lightning. Ruia and Akito leapt out from the billowing smoke. When the smoke cleared, the halo's figure could be seen again, completely unscathed. That's trouble fella for ya. Not even both of us can kill it. Akito and Rui frowned. The halo withstood the attacks that could even kill an ancient dragon. Could it be that this fella is as strong as the golden dragon? Rui shook his head upon hearing Akito's remark. Doesn't seem to be that strong. Its defense is tough for sure. In that case, Akito glared at the fiercely spinning halo, and Rui nodded back at the former. Destroying that barrier of light isn't supposed to be that difficult. Yuma made a beeline toward the halo. Yuma was closing in toward the halo. The hammer glowed red like magma, emitting steam from its entire surface as it waited for the spinning halo. Yuma raised his hammer overhead and brandished it toward the spinning halo before him. Dazzling light exploded, followed by a huge explosion. Ruia and Akita retreated, but the Indonesian seekers got blasted away. Emerging from the rising flame was Yuma. Though the halo was still burned by the flame, Yuma frowned. The halo spun slowly, and then made its way through the sea of flame. Every single eye on its surface appeared to be unscathed, causing Yuma to click his tongue in annoyance. Does that mean magic doesn't work on this fella? Darn. If only I could use metal armor form, this thing would be toast. Albeit annoyed, Yuma knew that he couldn't afford to let Rahmid, Zamara, and other seekers see him in his black armor form. The reason being that Alma made him look like a monster. A chill ran down Yuma's spine just recalling the time he got beaten up so badly by seekers around the world. Blood yaw. Countless glowing red lines appeared on his skin. He decided to use his maximum speed and consecutive explosion magic. When Yuma readied his hammer again, the halo was already aiming for another seeker. The halo raced forward, grinding against the ground. It sent the standing explorers flying, heading straight toward its target. Zamara grasped her sword, pointing its tip toward the fast-approaching halo. Zamara knew that she couldn't escape. She steeled her resolve to defeat the halo right there. However, her hand trembled lightly. Her body refused to move in accordance with her brain after seeing the overwhelming power of the high-rank angel for the first time in her life. Damn it. I won't lose. The village where Zamara lived was overrun by monsters who came out of the dungeon. Those monsters had also killed her parents and siblings. Monsters were her bitter enemies, which is why she wouldn't run from this monster. Zamara loaded her magical power into her keris. She dodged the incoming halo and unleashed the lightning-clad slash. At that moment, Zamara saw her sword break into pieces. Zamara, who saw her weapon shattered, was left dumbfounded for a moment. But that moment was enough for the halo to turn around and close in toward her again. Zamara realized that she wouldn't be able to react in time. Rahmid and the other seekers were trying to divert the trajectory of the halo by attacking from the side, but their attacks were repelled. The halo, rotating at high speed, was fast approaching. There was nothing left she could do. Without a weapon and means to flee, Zamara resigned herself to her fate. At that moment, a loud explosion resounded. Zamara, who had no idea what happened since she covered her face with her arms, could finally see everything after she retreated. She saw the black Japanese seeker strike the side of the halo with his hammer. The halo tilted to the side and lost its balance. The man didn't miss that chance and unleashed another attack. He swung his hammer down time and time again with inhuman speed. Under the relentless attack from all directions, The halo of light couldn't move and was gradually pushed back. Zamara gulped as she witnessed the scene. The barrier of light around the halo began to creak. The aura, which seemed like an absolute defense, twisted and deformed. No way. It broke. When Zamara, overwhelmed by the relentless attack, took a few steps back, a powerful blow erupted. The sound of shattering glass resounded. The barrier of light that had enveloped the halo completely vanished. Zamara couldn't help but open her mouth upon witnessing such a spectacle. The barrier of light, which was impervious to both magic and physical attacks, was completely destroyed. The man then raised a war cry as he swung down his hammer. The hammer sank into the face of the halo. That attack crushed countless eyes and gouged the etheric body made of light. When the hammer flashed brightly, it exploded, further destroying the halo. The man had no intention of pulling punches and kept attacking relentlessly at high speed. With each strike, an explosion occurred, and the halo of light began to crumble. A scream like an ultrasonic wave pierced the air. Zamara covered her ears and took a few steps back. This is the end. The man leapt up and nailed a strike with all his strength. The body of the halo was pierced through, destroying the ground along with it. A massive explosion erupted, scattering all the particles of light away. All that remained in the surroundings was swirling sand. The glowing red lines vanished from the body of the man who had just landed, and his body returned to its original black color. Without a care in the world, he rested the hammer on his shoulder and spoke to his comrades, the Seekers who also came from Japan with him. Zamara's breath shortened, unable to believe what she had just seen. The Archangel that no one has ever defeated got defeated. Chapter 210, Inefficient Magic. You did it, Yuma. You might be the first Seeker to defeat a top-class angel on your own. Really? Yuma was taking back the liquid metal from his hammer while conversing with Rui, returning his weapon to its original shape, the pickle. He then heaved a sigh upon seeing the scattered ashes. That guy is strong, but not as strong as the Red Ogre or the Ancient Dragon. The problem is that a normal Seeker won't be able to break that barrier of light. You managed to do that with brute force, said Rui as he pushed out his right fist, and Yuma responded by bumping his left fist against Rui's. The duo let out a relieved smile after that. Thus, they captured the White Dungeon. Just when they heaved a sigh of relief, a voice called out from nearby, None. I can't find it anywhere. Akito was squatting down while searching around the pile of ashes. Rui then called out to him. Are you looking for a magic gem? Yes, I can't find it at all. The White Dungeon is tough. I mean, the last boss of the normal dungeon will at least drop their magic gem. Akito brushed the sand off his hands with a couple of pats and stood up with a grunt. He had heard that the drop rate in the White Dungeon was low, but he hadn't expected it to be this bad. I mean, we killed almost 100 monsters to reach the bottom floor, yet none of them dropped a magic gem. Does this even make sense? Yuma asked that question since this was the first time he entered the White Dungeon. That's why he had no idea if this was normal in the White Dungeon. I heard that even big companies such as Elcid only managed to secure a total amount of 4,000 mana index of white magic gems, so even if we defeat 100 monsters, there's no guarantee that they'll drop a magic gem. Akito had also nodded in agreement with Rui. Even Farmel only had 2,000 mana index until last year. The drop rate is dozens of times lower than in other dungeons. Yuma gasped upon hearing just how low the drop rate of white magic gems was. He finally understood what Ashio meant by inefficient when he said that he was going to dive into the White Dungeon in Hokkaido, meaning that India, which has a 16,000 mana index worth of white magic gems, well, it must have taken several years to collect. It's something to be grateful for. If you were to sell it now, it would probably go for several 100 billion to 1 trillion yen, wouldn't it? Trillions? Yuma almost fainted on the spot upon hearing such a sky-high price. He knew that white magic gems were really expensive, but he had never expected them to be that expensive. Not to mention that the price skyrocketed after the appearance of the kings. As Yuma and the others were talking, Rahmat approached from a distance. He seemed to be dragging his injured leg. Guys, thanks a lot. Thanks to you, we managed to capture this dungeon. Rahmat offered a handshake with a beaming smile on his face. When Yuma accepted his handshake, Rahmat couldn't hide his shock at how hard the other party's hand was. Wow, your hand is really as hard as steel. I've never seen a magic like this before. Rahmed was looking curiously at Yuma's metallized body. How's the injury on your leg, Rahmed-san? Rahmed replied with this kind of injury isn't a big deal, with a hearty, genuine smile on his face. Since we have less than 24 hours before the dungeon collapses, we should get out of here as soon as possible. Wait a second please, said Yuma as soon as he saw that Rahmed was about to leave. Is something the matter? Well, I think it'll be much better for you to heal the wound on your leg before leaving. Heal this leg? We have no messiah though. That's why I have to head to the hospital as soon as we're out of this dungeon. Rahmed spoke lightly without a hint of worry at all. Don't worry, I can heal the wound for you. Part 2. Yuma, kneeling on one knee, placed his hand over Rahmed's right leg. A faint light immediately emanated from his hand, healing the wound on the leg. Rahmed and the rest of the Indonesian seekers couldn't hide their shock upon seeing that spectacle. Does that mean you can use healing magic too? Rahmed stomped his healed foot down and confirmed that he could move. He grabbed Yuma's shoulders, smiling with his whole face. No way, you're too amazing. Fire, healing, and even that iron magic. I've never seen anyone use such multiple spells before. Really? That's true. When the dungeon first appeared, there were people who tried to use both attack and healing magic, but it was too inefficient and quickly became an obsolete trend. You might be the only one who can use both healing and attack magic. Rahmed laughed heartily as he replied so while tapping Yuma's shoulders. Yuma scratched his head with a wry smile. While he was pleased to be praised, it seemed that everyone except Rahmed was somewhat put off. Maybe they felt that he was a little overboard with his praise. Having defeated the monster in the lowest layer, everyone decided to leave the dungeon together. Although the collapse began from the bottom floor, since this dungeon wasn't very deep, there should be enough time to escape without panic. Once the time for his metallization had come, Yuma released his transformation, turning the color of his skin back to normal as he walked to the upper floor along with Ruya and Akito. At that moment, Zamara's figure caught his eye. It seemed she had been looking at him, but when Yuma met her gaze, she averted her eyes and left with her companions. It seemed not everyone was happy with their assistance. Yuma and his group joined Rahmed's Seeker clan and headed toward the exit. By the time they exited the White Dungeon, it was already morning, and the night had completely passed. When he realized they had been in the dungeon for a full 24 hours, exhaustion washed over him. Yuma stretched his arms and blinked his eyes. The returning seekers were sitting down on the lawn of the soccer field, receiving treatment for their wounds. Many had lost their lives, and there were quite a few injured as well. This isn't the time for celebration. As Yuma was thinking about this, Hendry came in from the entrance of the soccer field, with a broad smile on his face. Dear me. Everyone, you did it. I can't believe you actually managed to conquer the White Dungeon. Hendry approached the exhausted trio and shook hands with Yuma, Ruya, and Akito in turn. I heard it was a great success. Calling you all from Japan was definitely the right decision. There was some opposition, but in the end, it proved to be correct. Hendry glanced over to the side, and there stood Zamara and her Seeker clan's members. When he said opposition, it seemed the one who opposed it was Kujata. Well, it's not uncommon to dislike outsiders. When Yuma muttered quietly, Akito asked, "What? Did you say something?" So he replied back, "No, it's nothing." This might be the last time they would see Zamara and her party members. There was no need to stir up unnecessary trouble. I need to check the damage situation. I would like to speak with all of you as well, so could you please wait over there in that tent? When Yuma and the others looked over, they saw a white garage tent set up, probably for resting. Yuma said to Hendry, understood, and walked with Ruya and Akito toward the tent. Inside, there was a long table and round chairs. Yuma sat down on a chair and rested his forehead on the table, heaving a sigh of relief. It was his first mission after traveling abroad. He was a bit worried but managed to finish it somehow. Chapter 211, White Magic Gem. We got the White Magic Gem. How much it was again? Around 3,800 mana index if I'm not mistaken. Rui touched his chin, hearing Akito's question. According to Hendry-san, the magic gem kept by the government was on the way to East Java province. We might know it soon. Really? Yuma, who was lying prostrated on the table, suddenly exclaimed as he stood up, "We'd better get our reward as soon as possible since our real destination was India." When Yuma was thinking about such things, he noticed that someone was standing in front of the tent. You are." Seeing Yuma stand up from the chair and walk to the entrance, Ruya and Akito also looked to the entrance of the tent. The one who stood in front of the tent was Zamara. Still fully armed and clad in her soiled battlesuit. Yuma was wondering what she was doing in this place when she was supposed to receive treatment in the hospital for her injury. "May I talk with you for a bit?" There was an earphone translator fastened on Zamara's ear. Thus, they could speak to each other even when using their own native language. "Sure. Is something the matter?" Yuma walked up to Zamara, still quite nervous due to the other party's beauty. "What does she want to talk to me about? I thought she hated me." Yuma had no good impression of Zamara due to the latter's rejection in the beginning, but, "Thank you very much for saving my life back then." Don't worry, it's no." Yuma was flustered since he never imagined that the other party would come to thank him. When he looked at Zamara's face again, it only acted as a reminder for him about the other party's beauty. Combined with her healthy, tanned skin and beautiful, long black hair, only emphasized her exotic beauty. Her battlesuit, which was modeled after the national costume with lots of skin exposure, had only made it difficult for him to look at her. "I heard that your body turned black like steel. Is it because of your magic, right? Is that mean you can constantly maintain that state?" "Nope, it's not like I'm constantly using that magic, or what I dubbed as metallization. Normally, I'm just a normal human." "I see. By the way, I heard you're going to India. Is that true? I've heard it's quite a tough place." "Yes, but I have no choice but to head there. I've to go there no matter what." "I see." Zamara extended her right hand. Yuma hurriedly wiped his right hand on his pants and shook hands with Zamara. He tensed up as he felt the warm skin of the other party. "Be careful." "Yes, thank you very much." Yuma happily thanked Zamara for her encouragement, who smiled at him. At that moment, he felt something pushed on him. When he lowered his line of sight, wondering what it was, he saw a sword stabbed into his abdomen. The blade had a distinctive, wavy, snake-like shape. Rahmid also possessed the same enhanced armament. Yuma's eyes widened in surprise seeing that Keris was stuck in his abdomen. Why? He looked at Zamara, who stabbed him without hesitation with the sword in her left hand. Looking at him as if he were trash. Without hesitation, Zamara twisted her Keris as if to tear Yuma's internal organs, and as if that wasn't enough, she injected the magical power of thunder into her Keris too. Aawag! Yuma fell on his knees due to the sharp pain that assailed him from the inside. Rui, who noticed the abnormal situation, rushed out immediately with his katana in his hand. Even Akito ended up dropping the bread in his hand, seeing such an unbelievable situation. The Keris that stabbed Yuma's abdomen had already been pulled out. A large amount of blood was pouring from Yuma's abdomen and mouth. The moment Zamara raised her Keris to finish off Yuma, Rui closed in at once and drew his katana. Although there was still some distance, sparks flew from the friction of his sword and its sheath. Light of firefly. The sparks that get in between Yuma and Zamara then explode one after another. Kaiwa! Startled by the small explosions, Zamara instinctively backed off. In that moment, Rui grabbed Yuma's shoulder and pointed his sword's tip at Zamara. "What are you doing? Is this the order from the government?" Zamara readied her sword again as she said, "This has nothing to do with the government. This is something that I have to do." Hearing those words, Akito grabbed his Gaebulg and shouted, "The hell you're talking about? Don't think that you're going to get away with this nonsense for free." Akito had also pointed his spear at Zamara. Zamara looked at Yuma, who was bleeding heavily on the ground as she stepped out from the entrance. "You guys has brought along the black monster that more terrifying than the white monster." When Zamara brandished her sword to the side, the tent's canvas was torn apart, and people came charging in from all sides. All of them were wearing battle suits and had their swords drawn. "Who the hell are they? Indonesian seeker?" "They're my comrade, the members of Mahakala." Rui grits his teeth in frustration. Now wasn't the time to fight. They had to bring Yuma to the hospital as soon as possible. He was bleeding heavily, and he couldn't use healing magic properly in his current condition. To begin with, His wound was too deep and wouldn't heal that easily. Even with healing magic, one needs to concentrate on using healing magic. And there was no way Yuma could concentrate in his current state. Akito. I'll take Yuma with me. Please cover my back. Oh god it. Rui propped Yuma up by his shoulder while looking to the front. Though Zamara and 5 other seekers were blocking his way, Rui held his katana aloft and swung it down. The sparks that came out from the sword's blade exploded right in front of Zamara and her comrade. Whoa! W what's happening? Taking advantage of the enemy's momentary hesitation, Rui and Yuma ran out of the tent. Akito also runs at full speed, evading enemy attacks while following behind. Follow them. Don't let them escape. Akito's step came to a halt the moment he heard those words. Huh? Don't let them escape, you say? Who do you think you're talking to? Black lightning cracks from the tip of Akito's gei bulk. Who going to escape? Out of my way. Black lightning surged through the area, striking the Indonesian seekers. Those hit by the lightning were paralyzed and collapsed on the spot. Seeing such a powerful attack, no one dared to come closer anymore. Akito, don't kill them. Akito clicked his tongue upon hearing Rui's reminder. Shut up. I've already used the lowest output. Maybe due to the sound of explosions and thunder, Rahmid and Hendrai were running in a hurry toward their place. What's happening here? Akito replied with a spat upon hearing Rahmid's question. Your comrade is trying to kill Yuma. Are you trying to kill us? Hearing that, Rahmid looked at the entrance. Then he saw the figures of Zamara and Mahakala. Every single one of them was armed and looked at Akito with bloodshot eyes. What are you doing here, Zamara? Attacking our benefactor. Have you lost your mind? Hearing that, Zamara glared at Rahmid. You have seen it too, right? The black magic that man used is the power of Black King, Grace Amur, that was recorded in the slate. Rahmid grit his teeth and glared back at Zamara. Amidst all this, Yuma, on the verge of losing consciousness, opened one of his eyes and looked at Zamara, who seemed ready to jump at him at any moment. Grace Amur. Chapter 212, Clash of Clans. BGM. Wannabe Tojima want to be a Kamen Rider. The members of Kujata, the Seeker clan led by Rahmid, glared at Mahakala, the clan led by Zamara. Hendrai used that moment to rush toward Rui's side. Are you okay? What is going on here? Akito frowned at seeing Hendrai getting flustered. What do you mean, what is going on? Even though we fight for this country, is this how you repay us? Oh, outrageous. I also have no idea what is happening here. Seeing the flustered Hendrai, Rui said to him. It's a race against time, Hendrai-san. Yuma's wound is too severe. He can't be saved even if we brought him to the hospital. Where's the promised white magic gem? Please bring it here right away. The magic gem is on the way to this place. If I can get through on the phone, they'll bring it here immediately. Unfortunately, I can't get in touch with them. It looks like I'll have to go by car to retrieve it. Then please retrieve it right away. Every single minute and second counts. Hendrai nodded and left immediately after Akito scolded him. Seeing Hendrai's back, Rui also called out to him. And please bring a messiah too if you have one. We should have enough time. Oh okay. Hendrai ran as fast as he could, color draining from his face due to panic. On the other hand, both Rahmid and Zamara had finally clashed, followed by their clan members. It was an unusual sight of clans from the same country clashing against each other. As Rahmid and Zamara's swords clashed, so did their flames and lightning. Amidst the chaos of dozens of fighters, Rui gently laid Yuma down on the ground. Yuma clutched his abdomen with his hands, his face contorted in pain as he breathed slowly. He couldn't use healing magic properly. What shall we do, Rui? Shall we carry Yuma to somewhere else? Rui shook his head upon hearing Akito's question. No, we shouldn't move his body carelessly in this situation. It'll only worsen his bleeding. The duo looked at Yuma with vexed looks on their faces, unable to believe that things had come to this. Akito spoke in irritation while Rui grits his teeth. This is why I was against it. Yuma uses that metal magic, even if he doesn't become a black armor, to anyone who doesn't know him. He's nothing but a source of fear. The world's already on edge with monsters everywhere. His power is just too abnormal. Rui dropped his line of sight, realizing that it was true. Previously, they were also trying to defeat Yuma. In fear of the black armor power. What Zamara did right now was the same as what Ruia and the others did a while ago. As Ruia was contemplating the problem in front of them, a woman wearing a white hijab and a uniform came running toward them. At first, he mistook her for government staff, but he realized a moment later that she wasn't. "I'm Charita. May I see his wound for a moment?" She was a young woman with fair skin and a strikingly beautiful face. She was likely the Messiah who had been waiting on the surface for this dungeon expedition. "Please check him." Ruia reacted immediately and gave her way. Charita sat by Yuma's side, holding her hand aloft on top of his wound. Warm light overflowed from her hands and enveloped Yuma's wound. Yuma's face that was distorted due to pain gradually loosened. "How's his condition?" Charita shook her head with a sad look upon hearing Rui's question. "The wound is too deep. I can't heal it by myself. I can at least stop his bleeding and seal his wound if there are a few more messiahs." "I see." Rui frowned and bit his lips in frustration. Charita was probably the only one who could come in a short time. Messiahs were rare individuals, there are only a few of them in every country. That's why even if there were other messiahs, he didn't think they would make it in time. "Anyhow, please heal him as much as you can for now." "Got it," said Charita as she invoked healing magic again after Rui made a request to her. Yuma regained his consciousness, but his eyes were still vacant. If he loses consciousness, he might not wake up again. As Rui worried about this, Akito, who had been watching the battle between Rahid and the others, spoke up. "It looks like the outcome has been decided." Rui looked at a few seekers who collapsed on the ground and those who were injured but managed to stand firm. The Kujata led by Rahid came out as the victor. The last one remaining, Zamara, was gravely injured and barely able to stand. Despite Zamara's desperate resistance, she was captured by the seekers of Kujata and pinned to the ground. Seeing that, Rahid returned his sword to its sheath and walked toward Ruia and Co. Zamara, whose hands were tied behind her back and dragged along by him, was glaring at them as she said, "Rahid, you're going to regret the fact that you didn't kill that man. That guy will become a calamity that threatens the entire world. This is the only chance to get rid of him. Listen to me, Rahid." Hearing that, Rahid, who was dragging Zamara, just sent a cold piercing glance at her. He walked until he arrived before Ruia and Akito, squatted down, and looked at Yuma's condition. "How's the condition of his wound?" "Really bad. I don't know how much longer he can last." A shadow cast on Rahid's face upon hearing Rui's bitter reply. "My apologies. Most members of Mahakala, including Zamara's family, were killed by monsters. That's why they really hate monsters." "Does that justify their act of stabbing Yuma?" Rahid could only drop his line of sight upon hearing Akito's angry question. "I've no excuse for that. This is also our fault for not restraining Zamara and her comrades. I should have taken more precautions to prevent this kind of accident, knowing about their past." Rahid grit his teeth in frustration. Both Ruia and Akito also couldn't bring themselves to blame Rahid, who had nothing to do with this incident. But he felt guilty about the fact that people of his country were trying to kill Yuma due to an unfounded fear of his power. A car arrived in a soccer field around 20 minutes later. Ruia and Akito rushed up immediately toward Hendrai, who came out of the car in a hurry. "Sorry for the waiting. Here's the promised white magic gem." He brought a transparent rectangular case. There were a few magic gems inside. "We've been waiting for you, Hendrai." Akito grabbed the case in a hurry and went back to Yuma as he kneeled beside him. He lifted Yuma's head and placed the magic gem from the case in Yuma's mouth. "Yuma, wake up. Drink this and use healing magic immediately." Akito desperately called out to Yuma. But Yuma's eyes were empty. It was unclear whether he was still conscious or not. As Akito struggled to make Yuma swallow the magic gem, Rahid returned with a bottle of water and said, "Use this." Akito poured the water into Yuma's mouth, trying to force him to swallow the magic gem. The water overflowed from Yuma's mouth and dripped down, but it seemed the magical gem managed to pass down Yuma's throat. After seeing that, Akito shouted desperately, "Hang in there, Yuma. You're the only one in this place who can heal your wound with your magic, got it?" However, Yuma showed no reaction even when his name was called out. Blood gushed from his mouth, and he was simply staring at the sky with a dazed gaze. Chapter 213, Compensation. BGM chilling. Oh no. He is about to lose consciousness again. Akito shook Yuma's body in desperation, but the latter didn't show any reaction. He opened Yuma's mouth and confirmed that the latter had swallowed the magic gem. Oi! Can he still absorb the magic gem after swallowing it even if his stomach is torn to shreds? Just like Akito, Rui shook his head as he peered at Yuma's face. It's not his stomach, the location of the stab is around the duodenum or small intestines. Since the magic gem is absorbed in the stomach, he should have no problem absorbing it. All we have to do is force him to wake up. The duo was looking at Yuma. They knew that to close Yuma's wound, he had to use healing magic by himself. Seeing Hendrai and Rahmat also looking worriedly at Yuma, Akito nodded. Noot. Akito straddled over Yuma and grabbed the latter's collar. What are you doing? Asked Rui, but Akito just replied with, shut up and watch. In a loud voice as he raised his fist. We have no choice but to use the forceful method to wake him up. Akito's right fist was clad in lightning. He swung it down and hit Yuma right on the face. That punch jolted Yuma's head, however, it wasn't enough to wake him up. Not enough, huh? Then take another one. This time he unleashed a backhand blow on Yuma's right cheek. Though that attack jolted his head and made him vomit blood, it failed to wake him up. Akito. Yuma is going to die. Rui tried to stop Akito, but Akito shouted back, shut up and watch. And continued hitting Yuma. After 5 or 6 strikes, Yuma started to groan in pain. Oh! He wakes up at last. Get a grip, Yuma. What's happening to me? Yuma grimaced in pain as he looked around. It seemed he had woken up, albeit seemingly confused as well. Save that for later and use healing magic to heal your stomach now. If you don't want to die, that's it. Yuma finally grasped the situation the moment he saw his own abdomen. Got it. He placed both hands on his abdomen and concentrated. Due to the intense pain, he couldn't focus properly and had a hard time controlling the magic. Nevertheless, he took a deep breath and focused his mind. The light that overflowed from his hands glowed brighter and brighter until it enveloped the entire area. Whoa, what is this? Yuma was at a loss for words seeing the magic he used. He shouldn't be able to perform such powerful magic. The pain vanished once the hole in his abdomen was patched up. Such a fatal wound was healed in mere seconds. Wow, since when could I use such powerful magic? Yuma looked at his own hands in disbelief. Both Ruia and Akito were also unable to hide their shock upon seeing the wound heal rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. Udidit Yuma. Man, that was a really close call. Thank goodness. Does your wound still hurt? Don't worry, I'm healed, said Yuma as he stood to answer the duo's inquiry. Yeah. The wound on my abdomen healed too. Not even a scar is left. Yuma lifted his shirt and showed his abdomen. Ruia and Akito looked at Yuma's abdomen and confirmed that there really was no wound left. My wound has been healed. But why is my face still in pain? When Yuma tilted his head in confusion and asked that question, Akito dismissed it and patted Yuma's shoulder. Although his question remained unanswered, Yuma accepted it. The three of them then got into the car that Hendrai had prepared and returned to the hotel where they were staying. So, what is going to happen to Zamara-san? Yuma asked that question to Hendrai, who visited to explain the situation. Yuma asked as he sat in one of the available wooden chairs. Since there were only 2 available chairs, Ruia and Akito were sitting on the bed, listening to the conversation between Hendrai and Yuma. Akito was folding his arms in displeasure. Zamara and the members of Mahakala have already been arrested by the local police. Their assault on you was equal to terrorism, and they will be punished accordingly. Hendrai wiped the sweat from his forehead as he replied to Yuma. Akito snorted upon hearing Hendrai's reply. Are you sure that mere police can handle them? They're a violent group who can use magic. After mana overflows from the dungeon to the ground, seekers who can use magic on the ground tend to cause problems. The handguns of the police officers were not strong enough to break those seekers' magic barriers. Those kinds of seekers were a threat equal to monsters. Don't worry, Rahid and the other members of Kujata are the ones who will watch over them. Not to mention that they wore magic tools that suppress their mana on top of that. Well, we have no worries then. Seeing that Akito was somehow satisfied with the treatment for Zamara and her clan, Hendrai looked at Yuma again, and regarding that matter, The government has also expressed their deepest apologies. We sincerely apologize to everyone involved in this matter and are willing to offer some compensation to the Japanese government. That's why can we somehow resolve this matter peacefully? Yuma exchanged glances with Ruya and Akito. The first to break the ice was Akito. That compensation. Is it money? Yes. I've consulted with the government and prepared enough money compensa. No. Wait a second. Akito suddenly interrupted Hendrai. Money hasn't that much use in the current situation of this world. If you want to give us compensation, just give us magic gem. The government should have some, right? Magic gem, is it? B. But India already gave you a white magic gem. Hendrai shook his head with a flustered face. But Akito didn't change his demand. You fool. There's other magic gems aside from white, right? Just give us the fire and thunder magic gems since our next destination is India. We need more magic gems than money. Both Ruya and Yuma nodded in agreement with Akito's opinion. Hendrai wiped his sweat as if he couldn't stop sweating. Gee, got it. I'll ask the government right away. Hurry up. We're heading to India soon. Bring us as many magic gems as possible before that. I'll do my best, said Hendrai as he left the room in a hurry after Akito urged him. You went a bit too far, you know? Yuma chirped. But Akito just replied jokingly, Nah, it's fine. We've been the ones inconvenienced, after all. Well, especially since the pain in my face was pretty bad. I guess it's fair to get at least that much. Yuma nodded in agreement and rubbed his cheek, still throbbing with pain.